Chapter 365. A guy who became successful by selling successful studies once said that a millionaire's friends were all millionaires, and a multimillionaire's friends were all multimillionaires. Fong Yan felt that this sentence was bullshit. For example, he had 1 billion strings of coins on his waist, and he was a very rich person. Ruan Qian, this pretty boy, probably wouldn't even have 1 million even if he searched his entire body. The others also didn't have that much money, but this didn't affect the deep friendship between them at all. However, Fong Yan still clearly felt that there were circles between people. At this moment, at this place, the people who gathered together in groups of 3 to 5 formed small circles. These circles were closely connected, and there was me and you and me. What was worse was that Fong Yan didn't belong to any of these circles. Well, if this circle had to be defined, it could only be Swallow Dock Teen Idol Group. They all came from Swallow Dock, a great and glorious yet low-key place. Many people present didn't even know that there would be such a small village on the map, and that there would be such a tribe. The only comforting thing was that the Heavenly Queen, Summer, was always by their side. Even if countless people took the initiative to greet and toast her, there were even more people who tried to pull her into other circles to prevent her from getting too close to Fong Yan and offending the men of the general family. However, Summer was like a beautiful ginkgo tree, unperturbed by the wind and unafraid of the thunder. She stretched out her beautiful branches and deeply rooted herself in the soil where Fong Yan was. In Yi Fengxing's words, this girl was really a real man. Summer was the most dazzling star tonight, and her every move was the focus of everyone's attention. Because of Summer's existence, Fong Yan and the others were always under the illumination of a 10 million watt light bulb. General Xing naturally discovered Summer's existence, and someone had already reported her provocative behavior to him. Why don't I go have a drink with her? Li Guichang squinted his eyes as he sized up Summer and said aloud. General Xing waved his hand and said, "This kind of thing can't be forced. It's not a big deal to socialize with friends." Li Guichang stopped talking and started to chat with the people around him. This was indeed a high-standard charity banquet. Countless celebrities had gathered here. Ma Tian, who had just become the richest man in Huaxia because his e-commerce website was listed in the United States, Pan Shi Tu, the real estate magnate, the chairman of Hua Tian Entertainment, and some business and entertainment celebrities that Fong Yan found familiar but couldn't name. Bruce Lee also came. Bruce Lee was older than Fong Yan and the others. During the summer vacation, Bruce Lee brought his girlfriend back to Swallow Dock to play. Fong Yan, Yi Fengxing and the others even had a water fight naked in Shihizi. They didn't have much in common and didn't have many opportunities to interact with each other. However, they were all children who grew up in Swallow Dock, so at least they were familiar with each other. Bruce Lee came with his friends. There were 3 middle-aged men about his age. They were talking and laughing behind him. They seemed to be having a good time. However, the one walking in front of them was a young man who was much younger than them. This young man looked to be about the same age as Fong Yan and the others. Fong Yan and Bruce Lee stood up to greet him. This was the proper etiquette. Bruce Lee had a square face and thick eyebrows. He looked very dignified. He looked at Li Xiaotian and asked, "Your breath reeks of alcohol. You didn't drive, did you?" "Not much. Less than 2 pounds per person." Bruce Lee smiled and said, "I didn't dare to drive. I got a driver to send us here." Bruce Lee nodded and turned to look at Fong Yan. He said with a smile, "I heard you broke through again." "I don't know if it's good or bad," Fong Yan said in distress. "There's no one to lead the way. I can only find my own way." "It's always a good thing," Bruce Lee said with a smile. "But there's a balance between work and rest. Let's have fun tonight. If you need anything, just come to me. As your big brother, I have to take care of you in Yanjing City. I don't want to hear your gossip when I get back. Thank you. I'll definitely trouble Brother Xiaolong if there's anything. Fang Yan thanked Bruce Lee for taking care of them. Bruce Lee, are these your friends? The young man who came with Bruce Lee stared at Fang Yan and the others and asked curiously. Young Master Qin, they're the children of my neighbors. They're my younger brothers. Bruce Lee originally didn't want to introduce Fang Yan and the others to his friends. They weren't in the same circle anyway. There was no point in introducing them. But since young Master Qin took the initiative to ask, he had to stand up and introduce them. Bruce Lee pointed at Li Xiaotian and said, my younger brother, Li Xiaotian. Xiaotian, this is Qin Xiaofeng, you can call him young Master Qin too. Hello, young Master Qin. Li Xiaotian smiled and greeted Qin Xiaofeng. He could tell that his brother cared a lot about Qin Xiaofeng's attitude. Qin Xiaofeng nodded. They got to know each other. Bruce Lee pointed at Fang Yan and said, Fang Yan, Fang as in square and upright, Yan as in Yan Huang, he's a teacher in Huaqing. This is Xu Saiden, wait. Qin Xiaofeng, who had snow-white skin and delicate features, waved his hand and said. He stared at Fang Yan and said, Fang Yan. Huaqing's teacher, Fang Yan. Fang Yan looked at him warily and didn't answer his question. He thought, where did this brat jump out from? Let's hear what he has to say first. If he's my enemy, I'll point at General Xing and say he's Fang Yan. If he's my admirer and also point at General Xing and say he's Fang Yan, then they might start fighting. How nice. Bruce Lee looked at Fang Yan in surprise and thought, how did this brat get so famous? Even young Master Qin knows his name and background. You're looking for Fang Yan. Yi Fengxing also stared at Qin Xiaofeng cautiously and asked. Fang Yan had too many enemies. As his brothers, they had to be on guard to not get ambushed. I'm not looking for him. But I've heard of him. Qin Xiaofeng laughed and said, awesome. Awesome person. In Yanjing City, General Ling was as arrogant as the King of Heaven, not putting anyone in his eyes. But when he went to Huaqing, a layer of skin was scraped off his face. It said that the guy who scraped off his face was called Fang Yan, a teacher in Huaqing. Brother, don't tell me that Fang Yan is you. Fang Yan felt very conflicted. When faced with honor, should he accept it or reject it? That's him. Yi Fengxing said proudly, he's that Fang Yan. To Yi Fengxing, his brother's honor was his honor. He was very proud now. Ha 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 ha, it's really you, Qin Xiaofeng laughed. As he laughed, his face darkened and said, I see General Xing all right, let's not stand with this guy, lest those petty people from the Jiang family bear a grudge. Then, he turned around and walked toward where General Xing was standing. As soon as Qin Xiaofeng left, the middle-aged people who were chatting with Bruce Lee also left. A hint of panic flashed in Bruce Lee's eyes. He looked at Fang Yan and asked, do you have a conflict with Jiang Junling? Something unpleasant happened, Fang Yan said frankly. This kind of thing couldn't be hidden even if he wanted to. He just couldn't understand. The conflict between him and Jiang Junling was very hidden. Only those people in Huaqing knew about it. How did it spread to Yanjing? Fang Yan wouldn't believe that there wasn't a murderer behind the scenes. But which family did this? If he and Jiang Junling had a conflict, who would benefit the most? The Jiang family. Their family was the most likely. After all, the four families of Huaqing, the Lu family and the Gu family had formed an alliance with him because of the Rubik's Cube technology. Only the Jiang family's ambition didn't die. They actually held on to the thigh of the Jiang family, and the two families seemed to be connected by marriage. However, if this news was really released by the Jiang family, weren't they afraid of offending Jiang Junling, the most promising person in the Jiang family? Among these rumors, Jiang Junling's reputation was the most severely damaged. He had incurred a lot of hatred because of these rumors, but he had also established a lot of prestige. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to provoke a man who even Jiang Junling bullied to the point of crying, right? Fang Yan looked at Bruce Lee and said, "Brother Xiaolong, I'm really sorry to have caused you trouble." Bruce Lee was different from Yi Fengxing and Li Xiaotian. Yi Fengxing and Li Xiaotian were idle in Swallow Dock. They had food and drink, so they didn't need to flatter anyone or please anyone. However, Bruce Lee was the business representative of the Li family. He needed connections, a circle, someone to help him speak, someone to help him raise money, and someone to help him clear up connections. All roads lead to Rome. If someone closed the gates of Rome, you wouldn't be able to enter the city even if you had 10,000 roads. His friends, who had called him brothers just now, immediately turned and left when they heard that Fang Yan and Jiang Junling had a conflict. This was profit, this was reality. Bruce Lee sighed softly and said, "This has nothing to do with you." A middle-aged man couldn't bear to see him like this. He turned and walked to Bruce Lee and said, "Xiaolong, we are businessmen, we have to take care of our fellow countrymen, but we also have to take care of the big picture. Let's go and sit with young Master Jiang. You can say that you don't know anything. This matter has nothing to do with you anyway." Bruce Lee hesitated for a moment and said, "Brother Ho, thank you for the reminder. However, these are my younger brothers. I can't abandon them." The man sighed and turned to leave. Qin Shaofeng pointed at Bruce Lee and laughed, saying, "Bruce Lee, don't be reckless. That kid is a troublemaker. Do you know how deep the conflict between him and Jiang Junling is? Do you think it can be resolved by saying sorry and setting up a banquet? Childish. Qin Shaofeng, who has a conflict with my brother again?" A woman's dissatisfied voice came over. Another group of young people in bright clothes came over, led by Jiang Junling, who wore glasses and had a gentle smile on his face. The smile on Fang Yan's face was like a dried chrysanthemum. Tonight's banquet was really getting more and more lively. Chapter 366. Jiang Junling was very low-key, but when he arrived, he was not low-key at all. If one were to say that when the general walked over, he was like a magnet that automatically attracted the people around him to pay their respects, then Jiang Junling was like a large piece of blooming rape flower field. Not only the small bees nearby rushed towards him, but also the bees in the distance rushed towards Jiang Junling in groups. Magnets could only affect some metal objects at close range, but the flower field could affect the bees and the entire nature. As an elder brother, such a sharp contrast really made people feel very uncomfortable. The vast starry sky and earth automatically formed a human wall, and the human wall arrow went straight towards Jiang Junling. Everyone inside the human wall felt that they were doing it very casually and secretly, but from the perspective of a bystander, Fang Yan felt that their actions were really like a group of sneaky thieves. Jiang Junling was surrounded by a larger crowd, and even the eyes of the people around him were all blocked. Fang Yan and his friends once again became outsiders. What was gratifying was that Summer had been standing by his side, never leaving. Fang Yan's friends really liked Summer, and there were even people who secretly asked Fang Yan if Summer was his girlfriend or if Summer had a boyfriend. Qin Shaofeng breathed a sigh of relief and made a bye-bye gesture to Fang Yan, indicating that Fang Yan should quickly get lost before Jiang Junling had time to deal with him. It had to be said that this action was very rude, but he was indeed thinking for Fang Yan's sake. Fang Yan smiled and shook his head. Qin Shaofeng sneered and no longer paid attention to him. "Are you envious?" asked Summer, who was holding a glass of red wine. Her long hair was scattered over her shoulders, and the ends of her hair were slightly curled, forming a beautiful arc. Her shoulders were slightly exposed, and the large snow-white chest was dazzling. She used a perfume that Fang Yan did not know, that smell was very light, but also distant. It was as if he was going to bring people into his dreams at any time. After a pause, he continued, "Every man wants to stand in that position, right? Maybe you'll think I'm hypocritical if I say this," Fang Yan said. "I don't envy you at all. I wasn't like him, and I wasn't like most men either. What they wanted was to sit on the throne of the world and lie on the knees of beautiful women. No matter where I go, I'll be the center of attention. I don't want to live such a life. Pretend. Tired. I just want to be a quiet teacher and pass on my life's knowledge to my lovely students." He didn't ask for a good life, but he didn't want to waste his time with them. In his spare time, he would read a few poetry collections, write a few calligraphy pieces, sit by the window and listen to the rain, or go to a tea house to get drunk. He would marry a wife who was not very beautiful. Of course, she could also be very beautiful and give birth to a few clever children. "I feel like my life is complete. This is the life I want." Xia Chen was sluggish for a long time, then he let out a weak sigh and said, "Although I know what you said is false, I still feel that this kind of life is very beautiful. It's very exciting." Yi Fengxing glanced at Fang Yan and said, "I think you might as well sit on the throne of the world and lie on the knees of beautiful women. Looking at you pretending like this, I feel tired." In front of beautiful women, there were many cases of brothers stabbing each other. This was the case all over the world. "You don't understand." Fang Yan had a sad look on his face, as if it was hard to find a confidant in the world. "You don't understand." Jiang Junling was very gentlemanly. More and more people came to greet him, and they would also take the initiative to greet some elders or important people. The crowd would eventually disperse. When Jiang Junling's group of people once again appeared in Fang Yan's field of vision, Fang Yan knew that his misfortune was coming again. What was surprising was that those people didn't even look at him. Even Jiang Junling didn't look at him, as if he had never seen this person's existence. The person who had just scolded Qin Xiaofeng was a girl with short hair. In this kind of situation, she walked alone in jeans and a white shirt. She looked young and fashionable, but at the same time, she didn't fit in with the rest of the crowd. However, everyone treated her as a child, and no one was too picky about her clothes. Jiang Rong strode in front of Qin Xiaofeng, who was hiding behind the stone corridor, and pulled him out, shouting, "Qin Xiaofeng, tell me clearly, who does my brother have a grudge with?" "No grudge, no grudge." Qin Xiaofeng's heart was full of bitterness. He just wanted to distance himself from Fang Yan with a few words of gossip. How did the petty Jiang family hear it? "I'm talking about conflict. It's just a little conflict." "Who has a conflict with my brother? How come I didn't know about this?" Jiang Rong clearly didn't want to stop here, and continued to pursue. "I only heard about it," Qin Xiaofeng said. "I heard that when second brother was in Flower City, he had some conflict with a guy called Fang Yan. You know that I have a loose tongue, and I like to talk nonsense when I hear something. Usually, when he hears something, he likes to talk nonsense. Maybe there's no such thing." "Of course there's no such thing," Jiang Rong said. "Who is Fang Yan?" "Never heard of him." "Never heard of him." These 4 words expressed the Jiang family's attitude towards the conflict between the Jiang family Ling and Fang Yan. "Never heard of this, never heard of a person called Fang Yan. How could a small character like Fang Yan be placed together with Jiang Junling?" The greatest humiliation was being ignored. Qin Xiaofeng glanced at where Fang Yan was standing and said, "Good that you haven't heard of him." "I haven't heard of him either. He's probably some small character that's not famous. I think those rumors are fake. Who can be a match for a genius like second young master?" "Humph, good that you know," Jiang Rong said coldly. "Qin Xiaofeng, watch your mouth, or I'll tear it apart." That won't do, Qin Xiaofeng said with a smile. How can I drink and pick up girls if I tear it apart? I'll rely on this face and this mouth to make a living. Jiang Rong finally saw Fang Yan, or rather, she glanced at where Fang Yan was standing. Then, she frowned and asked, who are they? How come I've never seen them before? This question was difficult for Qin Xiaofeng to answer. He had just said that he hadn't heard of Fang Yan, so he naturally didn't know him. If he didn't know him, then how could he explain the fact that Fang Yan was standing here? Who brought them? Jiang Rong asked. Bruce Lee's face was livid, but he still walked out of the crowd and said, I brought them. Fang Yan and Li Xiaotian didn't receive an invitation to the banquet. He did bring them in through his connections. This kind of thing couldn't be hidden. If they were found out, it would be more embarrassing. It was better to stand up and bear the responsibility himself. Jiang Rong looked at Bruce Lee, looked him up and down with a very sharp and mature look, and asked, who are you? Bruce Lee replied. Oh. Jiang Rong laughed. The Bruce Lee who has the same name as the international superstar. I've heard of you. I heard that your kung fu is very good, and your character is also very good. But, who are those people you brought? They shouldn't have received an invitation from the organizer, right? You brought such an unknown person in. If anything happens, are you going to be responsible for it? Can you bear the responsibility? They are all my friends, my younger brothers. I can promise. No one wants to listen to your promise. Jiang Rong interrupted Bruce Lee's words and said, after it happens, any guarantee is useless. If something happens to young Master Qin Xiaofeng, or if he is injured by your friends, how will you compensate him? What's the use of your promise at that time? What do you mean? Bruce Lee clenched and loosened his fists, trying to keep his expression gentle and calm. He knew that he couldn't be angry. Once he was angry, things would be more difficult later. What meaning can I have? The key is still your own idea. Correct your own mistakes, clean up your own mess. You brought people who were not invited into the club, which is not in line with the rules of the banquet. And these people may be aggressive. As invited guests of the banquet, we have the right to ask the club to deal with this matter. Of course, I don't mind giving you face and letting you deal with it yourself. You deal with it cleanly, lest the people of the Maple Leaf Club come out to clear the place, and you will lose face, right? Jiang Rong was not old, but his words were sharp. And he was reasonable, as if he was completely standing in Bruce Lee's point of view to consider the problem. This was a blatant threat. Everyone knew that this was a threat to Bruce Lee by the Jiang family. Bruce Lee broke the rules first. If the Jiang family really asked the club to deal with this matter, the club could only follow the Jiang family's request and expel Fang Yan and Li Xiaotian. First, they were not invited guests of the banquet, but vagrants who got in through the back door. Second, in front of Fang Yan and the Jiang family, the club would naturally choose the Jiang family. Who would be willing to favor a young man with no foundation? Moreover, it was only a little girl of the Jiang family who came out to deal with this matter. The other important people of the Jiang family did not come out, as if they didn't care about what happened here. From the beginning to the end, Jiang Junling did not say a word, not even looking at Fang Yan. What happened here had nothing to do with him. Yes, he didn't need to do it himself, as a general could handle this matter. In his eyes, Fang Yan was just an insignificant person who did not matter. Jiang Junling thought so, and so did everyone present. Expel. This was an expulsion. Chapter 367. Bruce Lee had a splitting headache as if he was being roasted by fire. He had never thought that a casual decision would have such a profound impact on his entire life. He knew that these people's target was Fang Yan. He only needed to stand up and say that he had nothing to do with Fang Yan. He didn't understand how Fang Yan came in. Then, he didn't need to do anything. Fang Yan would be politely asked to leave by the club's security. But what if he did that? Where would the spirit of Swallow Dock be? Where would his reputation be? Where would his own spirit and reputation be? When he returned to Swallow Dock, he would be criticized by the elders in the village, and the teacher would use his shovel to beat his head. However, if he didn't accept the Jiang family's suggestion and insisted on standing on Fang Yan's side, it would be difficult for him to do anything in Yanjing City in the future. All the achievements he had made in Yanjing City and the connections he had built would collapse. All his efforts and achievements over the years would vanish. Because they had offended the Jiang family, which no one wanted to offend. Perhaps some people would care about their friendship with him, but they cared more about the living conditions of the family. This was the law of business, both real and realistic. Besides, even if he stood up to protect Fang Yan and told everyone here that he brought Fang Yan in, would he be able to protect him? Fang Yan didn't receive an invitation. He knew that, and many people here knew it. The person who helped to smooth things over also knew it. As long as the Jiang family was willing, they could even drive Fang Yan and himself out together. Bruce Lee alone couldn't protect Fang Yan. The reason why the Jiang family didn't directly go to the club to deal with this matter was not to save Bruce Lee's face. They didn't care about Bruce Lee's face. They let Bruce Lee deal with this matter because they wanted him to make a choice between standing on the side or sacrificing himself. Choosing to sacrifice Fang Yan or everything he had. More importantly, Fang Yan was driven out by his own people. This kind of humiliation was much more serious than being pushed out by the Jiang family. If Fang Yan was chased away by a single sentence from the general family, he would never be able to raise his head in this particular circle for a very long time. Everyone was looking at Bruce Lee. Everyone was waiting for him to make a decision. It was a decision that would change the lives of Fang Yan and Bruce Lee. At least, that was what they thought. What's the big deal? Someone sneered. Fang Yan strode toward Jiang Junling. When he passed by Bruce Lee, he gratefully patted him on the shoulder and said guiltily, "Brother Xiaolong, I'm really sorry for making things difficult for you today." Jiang Yirong was about to speak, but found that Fang Yan had already walked past her. He wasn't interested in talking to her. He didn't even look at her. Jiang Yirong gritted his teeth and sneered, "You're courting death." There was no one to blame. Bruce Lee, don't learn from this idiot. Fang Yan stood in front of Jiang Junling. The bodyguards behind him wanted to make a move, but Jiang Junling waved his hand to stop them. In this place, Fang Yan didn't dare to make a move. Even if Fang Yan touched a strand of his hair, he had a way to throw Fang Yan into prison and make him spend the rest of his life in prison. Bao Shi, the Xingyi Grand Master who had fought with Fang Yan in Huaqing, stood behind Jiang Junling and looked at Fang Yan with a playful look. The hanged ghost fisherman, who had an old relationship with Fang Yan's grandfather Fang Hui, also stood behind Jiang Junling. He wore sunglasses and looked around. No one knew what he was thinking. There were also two strange-looking men staring at Fang Yan with inquiring or fanatical eyes. They had all heard about the battle between Fang Yan and Bao Shi in Huaqing and were very curious about the young warrior Fang Yan. If it weren't for their status, they would have stood up and challenged Fang Yan. Fang Yan was surprised and thought that it was logical. The tigress in camouflage clothes stood next to Jiang Junling. She seemed to have a high status. When she saw Fang Yan looking at her, she took the initiative to greet Fang Yan and said, "Little handsome, we meet again. I said, don't forget my name. You won't disappoint me, will you? Miss Tigress." Fang Yan greeted the tigress gracefully and said with a smile, "How can I forget such a charming lady? You have a sweet mouth." I didn't dote on you for nothing. The tigress giggled and said, her chest heaving up and down. It was very eye-catching. Fang Yan looked at Jiang Junling with gentle eyes and a calm expression and said, I apologize to you. Hua, the audience was in an uproar. Everyone looked at Fang Yan in shock. Some were laughing, some were mocking him, but most of them looked like they were deep in thought or understood. This idiot finally can't bear the pressure, right? Fighting with the generals, he doesn't even know who he is. A country bumpkin is a country bumpkin. Jiang Junling didn't say a word, and a random kid can make Fang Yan stand up and apologize to him. Jiang Junling really lives up to his reputation. Apologizing is what a smart person does. What can that kid do if he doesn't admit defeat? Ask for money. He doesn't. Ask for people. He doesn't either. What right did he have to fight against the general order? Jiang Junling doesn't need to do anything, his people can take care of things properly. There was a lot of discussion below the stage, but the little fellows of Swallow Dock looked at Jiang Junling with a strange expression, as if they were looking forward to the start of a big show. Jiang Junling adjusted his glasses and looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully. When Fang Yan walked towards him, he calculated in his mind 3 choices and 19 ways to start, but he didn't expect it to be this one. Isn't this guy very unyielding? I apologize to you. Fang Yan said aloud again. Just like the rumors in Beijing, we did have some unpleasantness in watching. You tried to plot against me, but I bullied you instead. You found a dog to stir up trouble, and I beat the dog until it lay on the ground and couldn't get up. Fang Yan pointed to Xingyi Grandmaster Bao Shi, behind Jiang Junling and said, Bao Shi, the king of Xingyi. You asked him to challenge you, and he's very strong. He made me use a lot of force, but I still knocked him out. Wow, shocked voices came from the venue again. Many people knew that there were many martial arts masters around Jiang Junling. These people were very strong and could fight against 100. Especially those who he brought with him to various large gatherings, they were all grandmasters. Even such masters were knocked out by Fang Yan, so how powerful was Fang Yan? Some people thought of their cold and dismissive attitude towards him just now. If he attacked in anger, it would be difficult for them to resist, right? Bao Shi's face turned purple, and his body trembled with anger. He wanted to fight to the death with Fang Yan on the spot. Too hateful. Too shameless. This is too much. Don't hit people in the face. You're not hitting the face, but the heart. Jiang Junling's face didn't change, and there was even a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Yes, this was the Fang Yan he knew. This was what his old friend, who he missed day and night, should do. He wasn't apologizing, he was provoking. Fang Yan. This time, even Xia couldn't help but stand up to stop Fang Yan. She knew what Jiang Junling represented, and how much power the Jiang family had. She was worried that Fang Yan would act out of loyalty, and that he would face more disasters in the future. She admired the brave, but she was more willing to applaud those who knew when to advance and when to retreat. Fang Yan looked back and patted her on the arm. He said with a smile, "It's okay. Jiang Junling and I are old friends. Some words have to be said face to face. Friends should be honest with each other. I apologize to you." Fang Yan said this for the 3rd time. Why should I resist? If you want to bully me, I'll let you bully me. If you want to beat me up, I'll let you beat me up. If you want to kill me, I'll let you kill me as long as you leave my body intact. Why should I resist? It doesn't matter if I resist, but I found that Jiang Junling is only so-so. His wisdom and schemes, which are praised by others, are like child's play. His ace bodyguard, which is envied by others, is also a peerless expert. It turns out that the general's order that everyone fears is a paper tiger. Yes, I should apologize to you. I shouldn't have broken this paper tiger. General Xing couldn't bear it anymore. He jumped out and shouted, Fang Yan, you don't know what's good for you. We give you face, but you don't want it. When we don't give you face, you won't be able to cry even if you want to. Fang Yan glanced at General Xing and said, don't be in a hurry to jump out and show off. You're the happiest person here, aren't you? You've been secretly setting up your brother again and again. Jiang Junling is such a smart guy. Doesn't he know? He's just pretending to be stupid. When he suddenly becomes serious with you, you'll know how stupid what you've done before is. If you don't have the wisdom of Zhuge Liang, don't pretend to be a hermit. Slander. General Xing's face was frighteningly gloomy. Fang Yan's eyes turned back to Jiang Junling's face and said, yes, you have money, power, and connections. Yanjing is your home ground, Huaxia is your home ground, the whole world is your home ground. I admit that I don't have as much money as you, power as you, and connections as you. I'm a small character, and you're a big character. No matter where you are, you have all the advantages. But, I must resist. I have no choice but to resist. Fang Yan said in a long-winded manner. He was patiently explaining one thing, although such an explanation would only cause more misunderstanding and hatred. I'm my mother's son. My mother only has me. If I'm bullied, she'll be unhappy. If I'm beaten, she'll be very sad. If I'm killed, she'll want to die. I don't want my mother to worry about me. I can't let my mother be disappointed in me. Whose parents won't worry if their child is bullied outside? Chapter 368. The banquet for hundreds of VIPs, waiters and bodyguards turned out to be a performance venue for Fang Yan alone. Fang Yan stood tall and straight in front of General Xing. The two equally outstanding young heroes stood face to face. One was gentle and noble, making people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. The other was delicate and arrogant, as if he was going to poke a hole in the sky. There were also many outstanding young people present, including General Xing, Jiang Junling's brother, Qin Shaofeng of the Qin family, Jia Yilin, the famous genius painter of the Jia family, Xia Tian, and several other super newcomers in the entertainment circle. They were all more famous than Fang Yan. No matter where they appeared, they were more dazzling than Fang Yan. However, at this time and place, this was the battlefield of two people, the battlefield of Fang Yan and Jiang Junling. One was the sun, one was the moon, one was the thunder, one was the spring rain, one was the white tiger, and one was the divine dragon. Everyone's eyes were focused on the two of them, and everyone's minds were deeply attracted by them. In front of them, everyone else was overshadowed and not worth mentioning. Fang Yan was very calm, so calm that people who were familiar with him felt that his performance was very strange. Jiang Junling was also very calm. He was very curious about Fang Yan's trump card to compete with him. Courage and hot blood. What a stupid thing that was. Fang Yan's voice rang through the whole room. He said, I don't want to resist, but I really can't. I've not been a good boy since I was a child. There is a factor in my blood that refuses to admit defeat. When others scold me, I scold them back. When others slap me, I slap them a few times. I don't take advantage of others, and I don't want to be at a disadvantage. This is not a good habit, but it's not a bad habit either. There must be something that needs to be insisted on, right? Whether in the eyes of my mother or in my eyes, I don't think that you are nobler than me. You are just a little richer than me. Being rich is capital, but it is not a reason for you to bully me. So... There was a strange smile on Fang Yan's face. It was neither happy nor sad. It was more like a comfort after venting. Yes, this was venting. He vented his anger reasonably. He didn't want to provoke anyone, he just didn't want to be a puppet at the mercy of others. He didn't want to kill or see blood, but he didn't want to be killed, and he didn't want to shed blood. Humiliation after humiliation, plotting against after plotting against. It was impossible to guard against an open spear and a hidden arrow. Fong Yan was really tired. Fong Yan was really annoyed. Fong Yan was really angry. Don't hesitate to fight. Unafraid of death. This was a declaration, but also a warning. These 8 words were powerful and resonant, expressing Fong Yan's attitude and determination in the face of his family's abuse. I don't want to fight, but I don't mind fighting. I don't want to die, but I'm not afraid of death. Paw. 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 Someone applauded. The one who applauded was Jiang Junling. Only he had the right to applaud at this time. He applauded for his opponent. Jiang Junling's applause was not warm, nor was it continuous. Strike after strike, dry, like a soup without seasoning. Jiang Junling habitually adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose, squinted at Fong Yan, and said with a smile, "Don't hesitate to fight, not afraid of death. I apologize to you, I have no choice but to resist." Fong Yan, to be honest, I'm starting to like you. Because. Jiang Junling paused for a second, as if he was considering his words. Because you are really different from others. Frank, direct, incisive, full of aggression, and you're still so young. If I could do it again, I would definitely choose to be friends with people like you. Being friends with people like you, I won't feel that life is boring, right? Unfortunately. Unfortunately what? Unfortunately, time can't go back. Unfortunately, we are already enemies. Unfortunately, people like us can never be friends. Jiang Junling didn't finish his words. Instead, he looked at the crowd around him with a smile and said, "I thought this was a private party. I thought the organizers would protect our safety. We are willing to do charity and devote our love to the people affected by the disaster, but we also have to be responsible for our own personal safety. I feel that I am in danger. Do you feel the same? Do you feel the same?" Although Jiang Junling's voice was calm and his smile was gentle, his words contained a fierce killing intent. I feel that I am in danger. Do you feel the same? Who dared to say no? Who could say no? If they didn't stand up at this time, if they didn't choose a good side at this time, then they would have no chance to do so in the future. Fortunately, this multiple-choice question was relatively easy. Which side should Jiang Junling and Fong Yan stand on? Did they even need to use their brains to think about this question? I felt it a long time ago. Li Guiqiang echoed loudly. Even cats and dogs jumped out to bite people. Isn't this party a failure? That's right. We are here to offer our love. How can some random people come here to make up the numbers? Even people without an invitation can come in. Can beggars from outside also come in? If a club like this can't protect our privacy, how can we be sure that it can protect our safety? Zhao Qingye, who was behind General Hang, also stood up to support. The Maple Leaf Club must stand up and give an explanation. Is the organizer responsible for this event? Who let them in? Are you going to hold those people accountable and give us justice? General Yi Rong's evil eyes glanced at Fong Yan as he shouted in a crisp voice. Sure enough, the situation was one-sided. First, the people brought by Jiang Junling and the General Hang brothers stood up to support Jiang Junling. Then, those who were close to the general family or had business dealings with Jiang Junling stood up to support him. Seeing that the commotion on the other side was getting louder and stronger, Even those who were originally in the middle or who were emotionally inclined to Fang Yan's side also made a decision to denounce Fang Yan's existence. The law of the jungle was the iron law of the jungle. The meaning of these people was clear. They wanted to expel Fang Yan. If Fang Yan didn't go out, then the meeting couldn't continue. If the general brothers left, they would probably take a lot of people with them, right? Even if the organizers insisted on holding the charity banquet, it would still be an incomplete banquet, a failure. This wasn't just the power of Jiang Junling alone. This wasn't just the power of the general brothers. This wasn't just the power of the general family. This was the power of Jiang Junling and the general brothers, the general family, and all the dignitaries in the city. Yes, Jiang Junling had only said a few words to make the top group of people in Four Corner City stand against Fang Yan. Their momentum was great, their lineup was strong, they were majestic, they were unstoppable. They could crush everything. This was Jiang Junling. This was Jiang Junling's method. Fang Yan could resist one person, but how could he resist a city? No matter how strong a rabbit was, it was impossible for it to carry a sandbag forward like a camel. The sandbag would break the rabbit's spine, crush the rabbit's skin, flesh, and bones, and squeeze out the rabbit's internal organs. Yes, the hundreds of nobles under the general's command were the sandbags that were pressing down on Fang Yan's body. Fang Yan's expression was cold, and his eyes were as sharp as knives. He clenched his fists tightly. Then, he used the Tai Chi Cleansing Heart Sutra to expel the evil energy that was about to explode in his body. However, the evil energy didn't disappear. Soon, it gathered again. Moreover, it gathered more and more, spinning faster and faster. It actually stimulated the awakening of the heart of Tai Chi. The core of the heart of Tai Chi and the cloud of strong evil energy contended against each other. The heart of Tai Chi frantically shook off the evil energy. Because it was clean, free, and free. The evil energy was too dirty. However, the vitality of this evil energy was extremely tenacious. It was like a rubber ball that was kicked away by the heart of Tai Chi. Then, it quickly rolled back. It was kicked away again, and rolled back again. It was kicked away countless times, and rolled back countless times. Fang Yan was furious. Fang Yan was furious. Fang Yan felt that his body was about to explode. Fang Yan felt that the heart of Tai Chi was about to melt. When one person oppresses me, I fight back with my energy. When one city oppresses me, I fight back with my life. I don't accept this. Fang Yan stood up straight. His handsome face was like ice, and his eyebrows were like swords. He fearlessly swept his gaze across the crowd and shouted, "If you are the heavens, then let me suffer a disaster. If you are the earth, then bury my body and flesh. If you are the gods, then take away my soul and faith. If you are the king of hell and evil spirits, then let me never reincarnate. I am Fang Yan. I am standing here. I will not retreat. I will not retreat. I am Yi Fengsheng. I am standing here. I will not retreat. I will not retreat." Yi Fengsheng took a step forward and roared. His fat face was purplish red. "I am Zhu Ziden. I am standing here. I will not retreat. I will not retreat." Zhu Ziden took a step forward and shouted. His eyes were wide open. He looked like he was going to fight with his life on the line. "I am Wang Kaixian. I am standing here. I will not retreat. I will not retreat." Wang Kaixian tore open his shirt. He felt like his chest was burning with charcoal. "I am Li Xiao Tian. I am standing here. I will not retreat. I will not retreat." Li Xiao Tian said with red eyes. He shook his body, and his clothes started to flutter. I am Enchanting. I am standing here. I will not retreat. I will not retreat. Enchanting, who was in charge of policy research, had a gloomy expression. However, his eyes were filled with determination. I am Luanjing. I am standing here. I will not retreat. I will not retreat. Ruanjing, who was the youngest and the weakest, also stood up. He used all his strength to support Fang Yan. Fang Yan, Yi Fengxing, Li Xiaotian, Zhu Zaidan, Wan Jing, Chen Yanqing, and Wang Kaixian. These 7 youths from Swallow Dock wanted to use their frail bodies to fight against the entire world. Chapter 369. Qin and Xiao Jiu come to pour laughing at the sky, forgetting laughing at the sky, forgetting everything carefree and light like the wind. The surging river can't hold back, full of lofty aspirations and unyielding character. Everyone has done things that are beyond their capabilities. A baby wanted to carry his father's bag, a bad student wanted to get first in school, an A-cup woman wanted to wear D-cup underwear. Fang Yan challenged Jiang Junling, a young man from Swallow Dock challenged a dignitary of Four Corner City. Such a thing was already beyond their capabilities. They understood their situation, but they had no better choice. Fang Yan was a proud person, and he also had an unruly soul. Just like he said, if you don't mess with me, I won't mess with you. If you bully me, I will definitely attack you. Tao is natural, Tai Chi follows the heart. Whether it was natural or following the heart, he needed to stand up when he was oppressed, and he needed to fight back when he was bullied. If you are strong, I will be strong, a tit for tat. If you are weak, I will also be weak, a breeze and a moon. This was the true meaning of the heart of Tai Chi. If he was forced to retreat by the opponent's strength or the general trend, it would go against the true meaning of Tao, and Tai Chi's heart of Tai Chi would be covered with dirt, and he could only stop here. Unless there was a great opportunity, it would be difficult for him to take another step forward. Fang Yan stood up, so the little friends from Swallow Dock all stood up. Just like how they had caught birds together in the bamboo forest countless times, just like how they had hunted rabbits together in the snowy mountains countless times, just like how they had played high up in the sky countless times, just like how they had eaten ambush from all sides countless times, and drank the strongest shadaozi countless times. Together. In their eyes, this incident was no different from the countless times before. The key was that they had to be together. Because they were a group, a whole. They had a funny, vulgar, but sincere team name, Swallow Dock's Pretty Men Team. With Fang Yan in the lead, he was like the spearhead, the sharp arrow, the fangs of a poisonous snake, and the claws of a ferocious tiger. He stood at the forefront and fought against the nobles in the city in the most direct and unyielding manner. Yi Fengxing, Wang Kaixian, Zhu Zaidan, Chen Yanqing, Li Xiaotian and Ruan Jing followed half a step behind, standing on either side of Fang Yan. The 3 of them formed a group and shared Fang Yan's left and right arms. This was a combination of attacks that they often used when fighting with other children in Swallow Dock. Indeed, as long as Fang Yan gave the order, they would charge towards the camp fortress just like they had together countless times before. The battlefield was different, but their people were still the same. Were they stupid? Yi Fengxing usually laughed and scolded without any sense of propriety, but in terms of martial arts, he was one of the best in the younger generation of the Yi clan, only inferior to his cousin Yuan Rou. Otherwise, with his current age, he would have long been kicked out of the Yi clan by the strict upbringing. How could they allow him to be a rice worm doing nothing in Swallow Dock? Zhu Zaidan was heroic and magnanimous, giving people a steady and reliable feeling. When Fang Yan was not around, he was the leader of the team. Wang Kaixian was impulsive and loyal, always rushing to the front when there was a problem. But he looked tough on the outside, but was actually very careful on the inside, and was his father's right-hand man. Chen Yanqing worked in the ministry's policy research office, making plans for the prosperity of the country. Li Xiaotian liked to take small advantages, but he was a typical logistical strategist. Before the army moved, the rations and fodder had to be prepared first. He knew how to be meticulous, and could prepare all the complicated logistical work properly. Even Wan Jing, who had the weakest personality, was actually a teacher in Swallow Dock, a teacher as young as Bai Xiu. It should be known that when Fang Yan wanted to be a teacher in Swallow Dock School, the teacher did not agree. Bravery, fearlessness, unity, loyalty, hot-bloodedness, unyielding, this was the sentiment of the youths of Swallow Dock, this was the spirit of generations after generations of Swallow Dock. Now, they did not hide it, and displayed this spirit in a crazy and high-profile manner. Their number was less than 1/10 of that of Jiang Junling's team, and their phalanx formation was negligible. Their combat effectiveness was not worth mentioning in front of the strength of the bodyguards brought by Jiang Junling, but why was it so shocking? Why was it so cautious and vigilant? Bruce Lee only felt that his blood was boiling, and he felt that he had to do something. Although he knew that it would bring him a devastating blow. Clang, 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 Bruce Lee strode to Fang Yan's side, stood side by side with him, and announced to the audience in a deep voice, "I am Bruce Lee, and I am also standing here. I will not retreat, not even a step." When he made this choice, his anxious state of mind suddenly became calm. Although the situation he faced was more dangerous, he knew that this was the path he should take. Confrontation. 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 Jiang Junling's eyebrows were deeply knitted together. He was really provoked by Fang Yan. This was also the first time that many people had seen such an angry expression on Jiang Junling's face. Jiang Junling looked coldly at Fang Yan and asked aloud, "What do you want to prove by doing this?" Without waiting for Fang Yan to answer, Jiang Junling continued to say, "Prove that you are a man with backbone and courage. Prove that you are a man who will not easily give in to others. Prove that you are a man with several good friends and brothers. But what can this change?" Jiang Junling looked at Fang Yan with an exploratory gaze and said, "What can it change? You really don't have an invitation, and we really feel that there are some elements of insecurity in it, especially now, I feel more and more insecure. I think my friends around me should feel the same as me, right? If you are the heavens, let me bear the disaster of extinction. If you are the earth, bury my body and flesh together. If you are the gods and Buddhas, take away my soul and faith. If you are the evil spirits, let me never be reincarnated." Fang Yan, I have to say that you are a very provocative guy and a very talented guy in speech. Even I, a bystander whom you call an enemy, was ignited by the power of your words. But what I want to tell you is that we are not the heavens, not the earth, not the gods and Buddhas, not evil spirits. We are just kind people who come to this charity banquet and want to make a little contribution to the people in the disaster area. That's all. We are here, we feel the danger, we feel some loopholes in the organization, so, we make some kind suggestions to the organization. Is there anything wrong with this? It is a well-known fact that you don't have an invitation. You entered here without an invitation. You broke the rules first, we don't need to invite you, and the security personnel of the Maple Leaf Society will politely ask you to leave. Of course, I also know that your strength is not weak, and you have even put on a posture of not hesitating to fight. I know that no matter who wants to hurt you, you will beat and injure them, right? If the security personnel can't invite you, there is still the police, Fang Yan, there are rules and laws in this society. You don't obey the rules, but you have to obey the law. Isn't that the case? Jiang Junling adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose, looked at the many distinguished guests standing on his side with a smile, and said, "So, I really don't understand, they put on such a posture of marching to war. what are they going to do? I can guarantee that this is definitely not a movie, because the Maple Leaf Society will never allow a crew to come in to film. A general's order was a general's order. The stance that Fong Yen and the others had put up, the momentum that they had created, and the situation that had forced him to the edge of the cliff to fight had been easily destroyed by him. He didn't compete with you in terms of numbers, even though he had more people on his side. He didn't compete with you in terms of connections, even though his connections were stronger. He didn't even compete with you in terms of strength, blood for blood. He only needed to grasp one point, that Fong Yen didn't have an invitation, and they entered illegally. He only needed to grasp this point, and that was enough. When it was reasonable, he should reason, why must he use his fists? This was Jiang Junling's logical thinking, the choice of a smart person. He was Jiang Junling, not those unscrupulous playboys hanging around Yanjing City. Ha ha ha, is it because you are used to acting? You want to act everywhere you go? Li Guichang said with a smile. Look at their expressions, it's so funny. It's really funny when they are serious. They look like the performance team of the Shaolin Temple's martial monks, but, isn't that fatso in the middle a bit too much of a killjoy? Yi Fengxing, you have to lose weight quickly, or it will affect the overall effect. Jiang Pingji, who had a grudge against Yi Fengxing, felt that he had gotten his revenge, and was in a good mood. The process was a bit complicated, but the ending was perfect, and that was enough. Because of Jiang Junling's words, the situation was reversed once again. Fong Yan's side's imposing manner became like a worm's. In the eyes of Jiang Junling and his group, Fong Yan and his companions were just a group of actors who liked to perform. Xia Ji frowned, walked in front of Fong Yan, and extended an invitation in front of countless people, saying, Fong Yan, I'll buy you a drink, let's go find a place, how about it? Xia Ji didn't want Fong Yan to continue fighting with this group of people, because she knew their style of doing things and all kinds of shameless methods. When you reason with them, they use their fists against you. When you use your fists against them, they use the law against you. They have more resources than you, and the means they can use are also richer. Xia Ji didn't fear Jiang Junling, but she also couldn't easily become enemies with him. Because this wasn't just her own matter, it was a matter of two huge families. However, the national goddess publicly invited Fong Yan. Wasn't she afraid that the people around her would misunderstand? The people around them had indeed misunderstood. They looked at Fong Yan as if they were looking at a dinosaur in the modern world. In the past, they heard that Xia Ji was with a mysterious man, and that the man was Xia Ji's rumored boyfriend. Could it be the Fong Yan standing in front of them now? Chapter 370. No matter what the occasion was, the goddess's invitation was an extremely honorable thing. If they did some other extracurricular activities after a drink, it would make people feel that no matter how much humiliation and censure they suffered today, it would be enough to make up for it. Summer's behavior was undoubtedly a stab in the hearts of many men at the scene. It should be known that although some people were rich or noble, they were also Summer's fans. Adversity shows true love. Fong Yan had always had a good impression of Summer. He felt that she was a woman with ideals and loyalty, a very good choice for a friend. That was all. However, Summer's protection today really made him feel grateful from the bottom of his heart. He was not a pure person, a person with interests. He did many things for other purposes, but Summer only had one purpose: to protect him. She cared about him as a friend. Now, the Swallow Dock team led by Fong Yan and Jiang Junling were divided into two phalanxes on the grounds of personal safety. It was a critical and dangerous period when the contradiction broke out. Summer did not stand on the side of Jiang Junling, who was of the same kind, but had always been on the side of Fong Yan. Although she did not stand up in public to refute or fight back against Jiang Junling's dissatisfaction, her inviting Fong Yan out for a drink was a kind of attitude. She wanted to drag Fong Yan out of this quagmire. Fong Yan turned to look at Summer and said with a smile, "Thank you for your kindness, Summer. Thank you very much. I know what you want to do, and I understand your intentions, but I can't promise you. As you can see, things have come to this point, I can't retreat. At least, I can't retreat now." Fong Yan patted Summer's arm, his eyes were gentle, and his expression was sincere. "Really, I'm really honored to have a friend like you." Summer's lips moved slightly, and all that came out was a sigh. She knew Fong Yan. If he didn't want to retreat, there must be a reason. Fong Yan turned to Bruce Lee and asked, "Brother Xiaolong, do you have an invitation in your hand?" "Yes." Bruce Lee took out a classical card from his pocket and said, "This is the invitation letter. It can also be used as an elevator access card." "No name?" Fong Yan asked with a smile. "The card is not signed," Bruce Lee said. "The outer packaging is signed." I threw the outer shell away. Fong Yan raised the light yellow card and said, "Can I borrow it?" "Borrow?" Bruce Lee was stunned for a moment, then he grinned and said, "If it's useful. I don't mind." "Thank you," Fong Yan said. Therefore, Fong Yan walked to the general token with the card in his hand and said, "Look, I have an invitation. Your card is the same, right? Or something more advanced?" "That invitation letter isn't yours," shouted General Yi Rong angrily. She was about to explode from anger because of Fong Yan. Originally, she thought that the matter could be solved with a few words, but this guy kept pestering her endlessly until now. What did he want? "It's in my hands." "Why isn't it mine?" Fong Yan asked with a smile. "I will ask the club to verify your identity." "It doesn't matter," said Fong Yan. "The card is in my hands, so the invitation letter is mine. If it doesn't work, I can change my name to Bruce Lee. My idol is also called Bruce Lee." "You, shameless." General Yi Rong wanted to rush up and chop Fong Yan into pieces. Yi Fengxing laughed out loud and said, "That's right. Fong Yan has an invitation now. He's also a person of status. Some people can't drive him out." "Brothers, are we going to be driven out?" Fong Yan should have done this a long time ago. Your serious look just now made us all very uncomfortable. "Hello, Bruce Lee." "Goodbye, Bruce Lee." Zhu Ziden teased. "I'm happy to see people we don't like unhappy." "Who said that?" Fong Yan borrowed Bruce Lee's invitation letter. It was the only invitation they had. In other words, only one of the 8 people could stay. Of course, Jiang Junling and the others only wanted to force Fong Yan out. Jiang Junling stared at Fong Yan with burning eyes. He did not answer his question for a long time. He suddenly had a feeling that danger was approaching. Perhaps he had made a serious mistake. He stared at Fong Yan with a gloomy face and said, "I've investigated you. I know a little about you. I just don't understand. What other trump cards do you have? What's the point of your persistence?" "I don't have any trump cards," Fong Yan said with a smile. "I just said, I'm just a nobody. I just try my best to spit on others when they step on me. I'm dirty, and so are you. It's embarrassing to say it, but there's really no better way." "If that's the case." Jiang Junling's eyes narrowed slightly. "Why do you keep looking at the time?" "You've looked at the time 5 times since I came in. 2 of them were the wristwatch of Miss Xia, who was closest to you. The other 2 were the wall clock of Starlight World. When you took the card from Bruce Lee's hand, you looked at the time on his wristwatch again. What are you waiting for?" The luxurious European-style decoration and the gorgeous and complicated crystal lamps illuminated the room as if it were daytime. On the wall of the room, there was a huge screen. On the screen was the scene of Fang Yan and Jiang Junling confronting each other in Starlight World of Maple Leaf Association. The image of the big screen was excellent. The facial expressions and eye contact between Jiang Junling and Fang Yan could be clearly seen. Even the black hemorrhoid on Jiang Junling's face and the fluff on Fang Yan's face could be seen clearly. A girl in a red dress stood in front of the big screen like a proud princess, watching her knights doing their best to kill each other for honor. Noble, calm, and sure. A handsome man in a black suit stood beside her. Seeing a drop of sweat slowly flowing down Fang Yan's forehead, he said with a smile, "It seems that he's in a bad situation. Miss, do you want me to go out and help him?" "No need," the girl said softly. "What are we waiting for?" "Waiting for the arrival of what he's been waiting for." "What if he can't hold on?" "He'll definitely hold on," the girl said in a very firm tone. "Because, I won't let him lose." Swallow Dock. In the thatched hut. An old man in a leather jacket was lying on a chair drinking yellow wine. Bai Xiuxiu was adding firewood that had been chopped long ago to the fire. There was no heater in the old man's house. The weather was too cold, so a fire was needed to keep warm. Under the light of the fire, the old man's face showed a soft golden color. His face was full of wrinkles and ditches. Who knew how much wind and rain and the past had been contained in it? Gulp, gulp, the old man drank a mouthful of yellow wine and handed over the wine pot in his hand. Bai Xiuxiu, have a sip to warm up your body. No need, Bai Xiuxiu refused. I'm not cold. Yes. You're not cold, the old man said with emotion. Young people are full of vigor. Bai Xiuxiu glanced outside the door and looked at the dense crowd standing in the snow outside. Sir, you have to say something. The Zhu family's old master has come out, the Leaf family's old master has come out, the Fang family's old master has been pushed over in a wheelchair. Yi family's big uncle Yi has also come. Everyone is standing at the door, waiting for you to say something. But the sir didn't look outside, pretending that these people didn't exist. He scolded with a smile, I'm standing here, not taking a step back. These monkeys, do they think this is an act? Bai Xiuxiu chuckled and said, isn't it an act? Yes. Isn't it an act? The sir said with a sigh. You young people are unreconciled, unconvinced. You're all suppressing a burst of energy. You like crowds, you like to stand out. You don't want to fall behind. But in the end, it's just a temporary flourish. Isn't it better for us, the people of Swallow Dock, to live our days in peace and tranquility? These monkeys came to Four Corner City, shouting and jumping, and even put on a show of facing death with equanimity. Didn't they want this old man to take a stand? Didn't this family's old master and that family's grandma standing outside also come to force this old man to abdicate? Who would have thought that the real battlefield of a few little monkeys in Yanjing City would be here, in Swallow Dock? Naturally, someone thought of it, Bai Xiu said. Yes. That kid from the Fang family must have thought of it. This show was directed by him, how could he not have thought of it? The sir shook his head with a wry smile. He came to me a few days ago, saying that we, Swallow Dock, have kept a low profile for hundreds of years, shouldn't it be high profile for once? I sang a verse from the virtuous works of Xinguang for him. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, he would bring a bunch of kids to Yanjing City to play this show for me? Fine. They've already set up the stage in Yanjing City. If I don't go up there and sing a song, it looks like I won't be able to fulfill their expectations. The sir stood up with the wine pot in his hands, walked to the corner, and took out a small golden key. He used the key to open a wooden box. Inside the box was a well-preserved wristband telephone. He dialed a few numbers, and the phone was quickly picked up. A man's dignified and respectful voice came from the phone, saying, "Sir, what can I do for you? I didn't want to make this call, but I drank a few mouthfuls of yellow soup today. Listen to me for a while, and don't feel impatient. You run the country, and we protect it. I don't think that anyone is nobler than the other, just that we work harder than the other." The ancestor of the Zhou family was a Hanlin, but when the mutated tribe invaded, the whole family fought against the enemy, and only one of the 9 sons survived. The Li family's old grandmother, father, and brothers all died in that unknown local conflict. The Yi family's old grandmother's husband was the captain of the guards of the old chief, and he used his own chest to block 2 bullets for the old chief. The Fong family's Fong Hui's father was an apotheosis realm Tai Chi master, and he died in the battle for the dragon Qi between the East and the West. There's also Fong Hui himself, who injured his legs when he accepted the challenge of the Western Red Devil, and became a cripple. You're familiar with the 24 histories, and you're even more familiar with modern history. There are some things I don't need to tell you, but there are some things I don't know that you know. The heroic souls of Swallow Dock will never die, and their loyalty will last forever. However, who would be willing to die for the country in the future after making the ancestors shed blood and tears? Chapter 371. In the long river of Hua Xia's glorious and torturous history, countless heroes, sages, and warriors emerged. Yu Fei was enraged and loyal to the country. When Tianxiang fought against the Yuan and died in Yidu, Sheng Qinggong crossed the sea and seized the island, protecting the integrity of the country. Deng Shichang died in battle in the Yellow Sea. During the 5 Barbarians' rebellion, the Han people were almost wiped out, but Ranmin fought back and was covered in Hu blood, earning himself the title of Butcher. For the great Hua Xia, for the Han bloodline, they shed their blood, served the country, and were loyal to the people. Some people became the bright moon in the sky, the dazzling stars, the role models of humanity, leading the future generations to follow their example, to forge ahead, to continue forward. Even more people turned into spring flowers, into weeds, into dew, and returned to the earth. Many people of Swallow Dock, many people, turned into dust that no one knew about, and no one would pay attention to. At the entrance of the dock, there was a stone tablet that had stood for hundreds of years, and even after many renovations, it was still broken. The various contributions that the men of Swallow Dock had made to the country were recorded on it. Some of them could be written down, but most of them could not be engraved on a tablet to show the world. Although they were not famous, and their stories were not popular, because of the efforts of generations of sages, Swallow Dock was still respected and relied on by the rulers of the past dynasties. Since the 5 Barbarians period, the tradition of the general dismounting from his horse and the prime minister alighting from his sedan chair had appeared. Now, the country of Hua Xia was peaceful, and the weather was good, but the enemy was still there, and the people of Swallow Dock were still fighting the enemy in various dangerous areas, protecting the dragon's vein. Fang Yan had accepted the challenge of the Japanese sword god Chiba Hashirama. And in those unknown dark corners, how many heroes were fighting one life and death battle after another? In the North Sea, in the Sky Mountain, in the land of the Goshawk, how many men of Swallow Dock were killing enemies and hunting prisoners? I understand. The man's dignified voice sounded like a heavy hammer hitting a nail, hammering the nail into the wall, but he gently and intimately said, "Sir, take care of yourself. When I have time, I will find you for a drink." After hanging up the phone, the man let out a sigh of relief. He raised the wine bottle and drank 2 mouthfuls of yellow wine. Only then did he wipe and fasten the telephone with fine silk and carefully lock it into the wooden box. He was so serious, as if he was collecting the most precious antique in the world. Bai Xiu walked over to support him and said, "Sir, do you want to go out and have a few words with them? Everyone's waiting." It's noisy. What's the big deal about a few children having a conflict? The teacher shook his head and sighed. Those dumb fellows, they're being used by those lads, they don't get it. With how crafty those brats were, it was fine as long as they didn't bully others outside. Who could bully them? I really want to go out and scold them. Don't scold them, Baishio said with a smile. They are all so anxious for their son. Otherwise, who would be willing to stand guard at the door on such a cold day? Humph, can't I scold him just because he loves his son? The teacher sneered. I don't scold them because, well, go out and say hello to them, and let them all go. It's not good to freeze the old man and the old woman on such a cold day. Baishio nodded, and prepared to go out and let everyone go. Since the teacher had already made that phone call, it meant that all the problems were no longer problems. Let the old man from the Fong family and Yi Daowen come in, the teacher added. Baishio went out, and very quickly, he pushed Fong Hui, who was sitting in a wheelchair with a thick blanket draped over his body, in. Yi Daowen, who was dressed in green clothes and had a jade-like face, followed behind and closed the wooden door. The teacher casually sat on his recliner, and squinted his eyes as he looked at Fong Hui, and said, You old fox Fong, other people might not understand, but you don't either. Fong Hui chuckled and said, My grandson was bullying people outside. As a grandfather, I thought I had nothing to do anyway, so I got someone to push me out to give my grandson a round of applause or something. You know, I'm a cripple, and I'm not very useful. I can only yell a few times. The teacher handed over the wine jug in his hand, and said, Why bother? Our swallow dock is peaceful and quiet. Everyone is living peacefully and living their happy lives. How great is that? Why do we have to get involved in those things? Everyone is willing to take the shortcut, but what if we accidentally step on a muddy swamp? We do want to live a peaceful and comfortable life, but people always want to bully my grandson. I'm not happy about that. Fong Hui held the teacher's wine jug and greedily drank it, and in one gulp, the bottle was empty. He poured the last drop of wine into his mouth, then reluctantly returned the jug, and said, The children at home are very strict, I can't even drink a cup of yellow wine, let alone burn knives. The teacher then looked at Yi Daowen, and said, And why are you doing this? I'm just going with the flow, Yi Daowen said with a smile. Seeing that everyone is here, I also came to take a look. I didn't expect the teacher to specifically ask me to stay. Do you still have any wine? I also want to ask for a drink. You can't even say it clearly, and you still want to drink my old yellow wine. The teacher said with dissatisfaction. Your Yi family is now the #1 family in our swallow dock, why are you guys also messing around? The teacher asked seriously, and Yi Daowen could only answer seriously. Looking at the fire in front of him, he said, It's not easy for Dao Xian and Dao Ling to do things outside. Those who have connections have connections, those who have connections, those who have connections, those who have connections. The people of our swallow dock are naturally different from others, and it's very difficult to rope them in. Yi Daowen picked up a bunch of firewood and threw it into the fire, and said, I'm just adding firewood to them. I want to see if this fire can burn even brighter. The teacher narrowed his eyes, and said, Looks like I'm really old. It's not that you're old, it's that they've grown up. Fong Hui said with a smile. When I received the call just now, I was also shocked. I'm not afraid to laugh at you, but this crippled me almost jumped out of my wheelchair. Later on, the more I learned about the situation, the more I understood these kids' evil intentions. Tell me, why did they dare to do such a thing? In the past, I, Fong Hui, wasn't afraid of anything, but I didn't dare to do such a thing. Our generation is also far inferior. Yi Daowen echoed. We discovered the problem, but we didn't think about solving it. These kids sure have the guts to think and act. When Yi Fengxing went out today, I even told him not to cause any trouble. It seems like he didn't listen to my words at all. The teacher waved his hand, and said, Forget it. Forget it. They went through the trouble of setting up the stage, and you guys were beating the drums and gongs, so I had no choice but to come out and sing a song. It should be over there soon, right? Go back and rest. I'm tired. Seeing the teacher's tired expression, Feng Hui said with a serious expression, "Teacher, rest well. When that stinky kid of mine comes back, I'll give him a good spanking. That kid of yours is smart, knowledgeable, and has accumulated a lot of knowledge. Why didn't I let him enter Meng's school as a teacher? I was worried that he would lead the good seedlings of our swallow dock astray. Even after guarding against him, we were still led astray by him." The teacher sighed and said. Yi Daowen's expression was also full of respect, and said, "Teacher, take care of yourself. We won't disturb you anymore." Yi Daowen pushed Feng Hui away. Bai Xiu took a military coat and covered the teacher's body, then added some firewood to the fire, and quietly left. The teacher was drunk, so he slept soundly under the light of the fire. It was a vast expanse of whiteness outside, and the sky was full of snow and wind. Bai Xiu looked in the direction of Yanjing City, and said with a smile, "How wonderful. What are you waiting for?" Jiang Junling asked. Jiang Junling was a conceited and smart man. He was good at observation, and his mental calculation ability was extremely strong. Although he didn't seem to focus his attention on Feng Yan, he clearly saw how Feng Yan had secretly looked at his watch since he entered the school. Feng Yan cared a lot about time, and caring about time meant that he had something to look forward to. What was he looking forward to? Who was he looking forward to coming to his rescue? It had to be said that Jiang Junling's question really put pressure on Feng Yan. He didn't have much contact with Jiang Junling, and the few times they met, they didn't get along very well. At that time, everyone was thinking of ways to knock down their opponents, so where would they have the energy to carefully observe and understand his character and habits? After Feng Yan got off the plane and was intercepted by two groups of people, he began to prepare for this big gamble. This time, he had the help of the Qin family, but what about the next time? Next time, when his family wanted to take him away, who would be willing to stand up and help? There was bound to be a winner and a loser in a gamble. Whether he won or lost, the decision was not in his hands, nor was it in the hands of Jiang Junling, but in the hands of the old man in Swallow Dock. He couldn't answer Jiang Junling's question because he didn't know the answer. He made a big bet and waited for someone to lift the cup. Clang, clang, clang. Because of the confrontation between Feng Yan and Jiang Junling, the whole starlight world was strangely quiet. Therefore, when the phone rang, everyone would feel that it was abrupt and ear-piercing. Seeing the ringtone coming from Jiang Junling's arms, Feng Yan suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, and his tense body finally relaxed a little. Jiang Junling took out the mobile phone from his pocket and glanced at the caller ID. His face immediately became as pale as paper. After answering the phone, he said, "Grandpa, come back." An old man's hoarse voice came from the phone. "You lost a long time ago. You lost completely." Jiang Junling held the mobile phone tightly, and his nails deeply pierced into his flesh. Chapter 372. When Jiang Junling saw that the phone screen showed the landline number of his grandfather's old house, he knew that something had happened that he didn't know about. He knew that his premonition was right. The feeling of uneasiness and dryness of the mouth when danger struck really did exist. He rarely experienced this kind of feeling. But, what on earth had happened? Could it be that the Qin family had stood up for Feng Yan? Only one person from the Qin family would stand up for him, and that person wouldn't alarm his grandfather. It was just a child. She should stand up for him and say a few harsh words, or ask someone to send a few invitation letters to help him out of trouble. This was what a girl should do. If it was just this, how could it make his grandfather say such a serious word as the crushing defeat? Did other forces intervene? If he had other powers, why couldn't he even get an invitation letter before? Swallow Dock. In just a breath's time, Jiang Junling had already thought of all kinds of possibilities. Finally, the target of the attack was Swallow Dock. They did have the strength, but what motive did they have? Just as he knew, Swallow Dock didn't belong to Fang Yan alone, but to everyone in Swallow Dock. The results of Jiang Junling's investigation showed that there were also cracks within Swallow Dock. Many people didn't have a good impression of the Fang family. Most importantly, Swallow Dock had been silent for 100 years. Just because of the disturbance caused by a few children, they were suspected of being bullied. So that old man stood up and shouted for them. His grandfather wouldn't explain the reason to him over the phone, and he couldn't ask anything over the phone. Jiang Junling didn't disobey his grandfather's words. He said meekly, "Grandfather, I'll go back now." After hanging up the phone, his expression had already returned to normal. Seeing that everyone's eyes were focused on him and the phone in his hand, Jiang Junling smiled and said, "Everyone, I have to go first." Wow! All the guests looked at the general's order in astonishment. They didn't understand why Jiang Junling wanted to leave at this time. After all, when both sides were at daggers drawn and ready to fight, leaving would mean that he was backing down, which meant that he had failed. Or did he already realize that he had failed? How could Jiang Junling fail? How could Jiang Junling fail in Yanjing City? Shock, fear, doubt, and hostility. Jiang Junling's failure was equivalent to the loss of their bets. They did not blame Jiang Junling, who failed with their expectations. Instead, they blamed his opponent for winning. Fang Yan, this country bumpkin, what kind of power was he hiding? Yi Rong quickly walked over and said discontentedly, "Brother, what happened? Why does Grandpa want you to go back at this time? Didn't you explain it to him?" Jiang Yi Rong still did not understand the seriousness of the matter, thinking that his grandfather had some urgent matter that his brother had to go back to deal with. Based on Grandpa's preference for Big Brother, he wouldn't have any objections. General Xing also walked over and said with a smile, "Is Grandpa's chess addiction acting up again? If that's the case, I advise you to go back quickly. Anyway, I won't go back to be tortured." General Xing's way of handling things was more experienced. He used a perfect reason to explain why his grandfather wanted Jiang Junling to go back at this time. This was to help Jiang Junling get off the stage. Jiang Junling ignored them and walked up to Fang Yan and said, "Wonderful. This game is really wonderful. Until now, until I just received a call from Grandpa that I understood. From the moment you found out about this banquet, you have been planning it. Even if I ignored you, you would find a reason to cause a conflict between us. Your goal is to make this matter bigger, to push today's charity banquet to the teeth of the storm, to create a situation where you and I will not rest until one of us is dead. It is only at this time that they stand up, isn't it?" Fang Yan did not expect Jiang Junling to be so frank. He smiled, said hello to everyone, turned around and left, or used the excuse of General Xing to perfunctorily brush off the unaware audience. These were all good ways to get a reason and preserve his face. Why did he expose his own disgrace in public and admit his failure? Was it because he was too proud? Or, was he still disdainful of himself? Fang Yan looked at Jiang Junling thoughtfully and said with a smile, "Let me tell you a story. I'm all ears. When I was 8 years old, every time I went to play with Yi Fengxing, their dog would bark at me and bare its teeth. There were a few times when it almost pounced on me. I was very scared." Everyone was listening to Fang Yan's story, but why did it sound so simple and shabby? Later, it was stolen and made into a dog meat hot pot. "I was sad for a few days," Fang Yan said. "I could no longer hear its familiar barks. What a good story, Jiang Junling said with a smile. Goodbye. Jiang Junling. Jiang Junling turned to look at Fang Yan. Don't be sad, you didn't fail, Fang Yan comforted him. Thank you. Jiang Junling's eyes were slightly cold. He did not need others to comfort him. You were just trampled to death by me. It's not a big deal. The general gave the order to leave. He sent Irong away. And some families who could not bear the humiliation also left. For some reason, the general line did not leave with them. As a result, Fang Yan became the only focus of the whole scene. Fang Yan took the wine glass from the waiter who was standing still and took the initiative to raise his glass to everyone. He said, I know you don't like me, and I don't like you either. But you can rest assured that I'm not a man who holds grudges. I can't remember that you stood on Jiang Junling's side and drove me away. Everyone was very worried. After their first contact with Fang Yan, they felt that this guy was really a very vengeful person. Fang Yan drank the champagne in the glass and returned the invitation in his hand to Bruce Lee. Brother Long, I'll give this back to you first. The favor inside is too heavy for me to repay in a short time. I'll pay it back slowly. Bruce Lee did not reach out to take the card. Since it's given to you, you can take it. Fang Yan smiled and waved his hand. He pointed to Yi Fengxing and Zhu Ziden and said, nothing can be accomplished without rules. Rules are rules, and rules must be obeyed. I'm not a person who likes to destroy things. My friends were forced to leave because they didn't have an invitation. How can I stay here alone to drink wine and look at beautiful women? I can't do this kind of thing. You keep the card and take part in the next auction. Buy a few more and take it back as our apology to our friends in the disaster area. Hearing Fang Yan's words, Bruce Lee did not refuse. He took the card and said, I'll buy one for each of you. Thank you, Brother Long. Fang Yan and Bruce Lee shook hands. We are all from Swallow Dock, Bruce Lee said. What you want to do is what I want to do. Fang Yan and Yi Fengxing winked at each other. The beautiful men of Swallow Dock were ready to leave. Mr. Fang Yan, please wait a moment. A clear and sweet woman's voice was heard. Then there was the sound of high-heeled shoes tapping on the floor, indicating that the person was walking in a hurry. The crowd dispersed, and a tall woman in a black dress walked over. Behind her, there was a handsome waiter in a black suit. The waiter held a tray in his hand. The tray was covered with white silk, and no one knew what valuable items were inside. Seeing the woman come out, many people took the initiative to greet her. Miss Luo, you're finally out. Miss Luo, long time no see. You're still as elegant as ever, Ming Yen, hurry up and solve the problem. These young people, some people did not understand the woman's identity and asked the people next to them in a low voice. Fang Yan did not know the woman's background. Fortunately, Bruce Lee, who was standing next to him, explained in time, Luo Mingyan, one of the 3 founders of the Maple Leaf Society. The Luo family has some influence in Yanjing City. I hope she came with good intentions. If they were not good to me, they would have come out long ago, Fang Yan said with a smile. Bruce Lee agreed. If the founder of the Maple Leaf Society had come out earlier, he would have expelled Fang Yan as the organizer, or even gone too far and directly called the police. There were still many things that Bruce Lee could not figure out. For example, why did Fang Yan and Jiang Junling have such a deep conflict? Why did Fang Yan sneak into the charity banquet and why did he confront Jiang Junling again? Why did Jiang Junling retreat at the critical moment? What did he mean by those words? He saw everything that happened inside the club. What happened outside that he could not see? However, Bruce Lee also understood that the Maple Leaf Society helped Fang Yan to defeat Jiang Junling. As the organizers of the banquet, they did nothing when such a thing happened. In fact, they were already partial. So the question was, did the people of the Maple Leaf Society also stand on Fang Yan's side? Luo Mingyan exchanged greetings with her familiar friends and elders, but she did not slow down her pace at all and walked to Fang Yan. She took the initiative to stretch out her white hand to Fang Yan and said, "Hello, Mr. Fang Yan. I'm Luo Mingyan of the Maple Leaf Society. I'm sorry I'm late. It's our staff's negligence that the invitations for you and your friends were not sent in time. We are deeply sorry that you were misunderstood by others." Luo Mingyan stepped aside and the waiter came forward with a tray and said, "Now we'll bring up the invitations for you gentlemen. I hope you can have a good time in the club." Chapter 373. Luo Mingyan uncovered the embroidered white silk on the plate, and there was a row of small envelopes lying quietly inside. Luo Mingyan collected the small envelopes and handed them to Fang Yan with both hands. Fang Yan took them and said with a smile, "Thank you, Miss Luo, and thank the Maple Leaf Society for inviting me and my friends. Just now, some unpleasant things happened because of me. Please forgive me, Miss Luo. As I said just now, because of our mistakes, Mr. Fang Yan was misunderstood. It's Mr. Fang who should forgive us." Luo Mingyan said modestly, but her beautiful eyes looked thoughtfully at the young man standing in front of her. He was gentle and handsome, with the arrogance of a young man and the vigor of a child. Such a person would have a peaceful mind and live a happy life. The curve of his smile was beautiful, and there were shallow dimples on his face. According to physiognomy, such a man was filial and considerate. However, was this the reason why he was treated differently? Sometimes, people really wanted to know the answer to everything. The appearance of Luo Mingyan, one of the founders of the Maple Leaf Society, caused a series of ripples in the starry sky again. The Maple Leaf Society must have seen the conflict between Fang Yan and Jiang Junling. They didn't show up when the conflict was at its fiercest. Now that Jiang Junling failed and left, they came out to send invitations to Fang Yan and his friends. What secret was hidden in it? What was more interesting was that Luo Mingyan said that because of the negligence of their staff, Fang Yan and his friends didn't have time to send the invitations. Everyone knew that it was a lie. However, this lie was a solid slap on Jiang Junling's face. Jiang Junling used this reason to expel Fang Yan, but the Maple Leaf Society stood out and said that they had invited Fang Yan and his friends long ago. Was there anything more humiliating than this? Then we're friends from now on, Fang Yan said with a smile. Of course, Luo Mingyan said without hesitation. From now on, Mr. Fang, treat our Maple Leaf Society as your home. Come over often if you have nothing to do. Many people gasped when they heard Luo Mingyan's words. To let Fang Yan treat the Maple Leaf Club as his home. What a great honor. The Maple Leaf Society was clearly supporting and siding with Fang Yan. Definitely, Fang Yan said with a smile. Luo Mingyan didn't stay outside for too long. She smiled at the crowd and said, "Everyone, please enjoy. I still have some work to do backstage. See you later." "See you later," everyone said. General Xing stood on one of the pillars, watching the scene unfold in front of him thoughtfully. "What do you think?" Li Guiqiang stood behind him with a glass of wine in his hand and said, "The Maple Leaf Society obviously takes good care of this guy. What do those women know?" "They've been on Fang Yan's side from the beginning to the end," General Xing said. "My proud brother didn't hesitate to kidnap all the guests to make an enemy of Fang Yan. If it were a smart organizer, they would have stood up to calm their anger at this time. Otherwise, if a large number of people left, the charity banquet would be ruined. My brother probably didn't expect that such a beautiful move of his would be miscalculated." "Why?" Li Guiqiang asked. I can't think of any reason. Is he worth so many people's expectations? Maybe. General Xing sipped the red wine and said, that guy has always been lucky. At 8:00, the banquet started on time. The host of tonight's charity auction was the ace host of Huaxia TV station, Wang Xiaoya. Wang Xiaoya was dignified and gentle, and her hosting style was flexible and sharp. She was the top hostess in the hosting industry and was loved by TV audiences all over the country. Wang Xiaoya, dressed in a black dress, walked to the front of the stage with a microphone in her hand. Her eyes that could speak swept the audience and said in a clear and enthusiastic voice, "It's freezing outside." When the car was on the road, the driver told me that it was -20 degrees now. I told him that I didn't feel cold at all. Yes, I didn't feel cold at all. Because I'm about to be with a group of very enthusiastic people to do a very loving thing together. As the old saying goes, when one side is in trouble, help comes from all sides. Our compatriots in Guangnan are suffering from a snow disaster. Their lives are threatened, their property has suffered heavy losses, and they may have no clothes to cover their bodies and no food to cover their stomachs. The country is moving, the people are moving, and all the loving friends are moving. Dear gentlemen, beautiful ladies, many of you are my familiar friends, and some of you are meeting for the first time. No matter who you are, I'm very grateful that you can appear here, and the victims of Guangnan are also grateful that you are here. Let's welcome Miss Summer, our beloved diva. She will bring you her classic song, Darling. Wang Xiaoya waved to Summer, who had just stood up, and said, "Summer, I'm your diehard fan." "Thank you." Summer took the microphone and walked to the front of the stage, saying, "Thank you, Xiaoya, thank you for liking my song, and thank all the friends who like to listen to my singing. Of course, I know that you didn't come here to listen to my singing. We have more important things to do. I give this song, Darling, to you, and also to my friends in Guangnan. Through thick and thin, we will never leave each other." The music sounded and the venue quieted down. When the river is still flowing, when there is still sunshine in the sky, darling, that's our hope. Xia Qin was recognized as an idol singer in the circle. The moment she opened her mouth, people would be amazed. She was instantly immersed in her singing. At the end of the song, the applause was like thunder. "Thank you." Summer bowed to thank her and walked off the stage. She knew that today was not a concert, so she didn't need to draw all the attention to herself. The people who loved the snow disaster in Guangnan were the only protagonists tonight. "Thank you, Queen of Heaven, for your beautiful singing." Wang Xiaoya once again held the microphone on the stage. Today, the station did a program about the snow disaster in Guangnan. When I saw the villagers living a difficult life in the snow-covered village, I felt very uncomfortable. Just now, when I heard Miss Xiao's singing, I connected the artistic conception in the lyrics with the living cruel scene. It made people tear up. It's so touching. My Darling was a good song that was filled with sincerity and sincerity. We invite Mr. Zhang Xueren, the king of singers, to bring us his masterpiece, Li Xianglan. Zhang Xueren is one of the 4 heavenly kings of Huaxia's entertainment circle. He is also an evergreen tree in the entertainment circle and has the praise of the god of songs. He was not good at talking. After going on the stage, he did not make a speech. He just quietly waited for the music to start, waiting for the beat he wanted to come. His voice was hoarse and magnetic, and he specially chose a lyrical song, which made people's mood suffer wave after wave of emotional attacks. It was conceivable that after a few songs, the guests at the scene who were completely immersed in their emotions would not be stingy to sign a considerable donation number on the checkbook. After Zhang Xueren's Li Xianglan finished singing, 2 more stars went on the stage to perform. These 2 stars belonged to the new popular young man and the otaku goddess. Their musical attainments were far from those of the previous summer and Zhang Xueren, but they were delicate and fashionable. Standing on the stage, singing and dancing were still very good at driving the atmosphere. After the performance of a star named Ai Jing, Wang Xiaoya went to the front of the stage again, looked at the many guests with a mysterious smile, and said, "She is a legend, but she is not only a legend." The venue was in an uproar. Everyone knew that music addict Lu Shuai-yun was going to appear. Not many people might know the name Lu Shuai-yun. But when it came to music addict, one of the 7 addicts of Huaxia, she was really well known. She was a strange person, but also a strange person. Of course, she was also an idiot. She was a music addict and a music addict. It was said that she was familiar with hundreds of musical instruments and proficient in more than a dozen singing styles. She did not participate in entertainment programs on TV, did not hold concerts, did not release albums, rarely participated in activities, and almost never showed up. However, she was admired and looked forward to by countless people. She is not only a legend, she is a living person, a living miracle. It is our honor to invite her here today. Everyone knows that Maestro Shuai pursues the limits of music and rarely shows up. This time, the leader of the Maple Leaf Society personally invited her and said that this is to raise money for the victims of the disaster, so Maestro Shuai agreed to come and give us good news. "I'm really looking forward to it," Wang Xiaoya said with an intoxicated look. Many people laughed, because this was the common thought of many guests below the stage. "Like you, I don't know what instrument Maestro Shuai can perform. So, like you, I will calm down and listen." Wang Xiaoya left the stage, and all the lights on the stage suddenly exploded. All the lights in the whole starry sky were turned off, only a small dim yellow light and the flying snow in the sky illuminated everyone. The dazzling banquet scene that had just been lit up with wine and a moment ago had suddenly turned into a deserted village street, and the guests holding wine glasses had turned into people returning home at night in the snow. Silence. Dead silence. No one spoke, no one drank, and even felt that breathing was disrespectful to music addict. Waiting, a long wait. Just when Fang Yan thought that music addict was treating everyone as idiots, a low voice finally came out. "Jade person blowing the flute." The voice was very low, like an old man's soft sigh, or like the cry of the wind in the wild. Fang Yan's dantian suddenly became hot, as if it was being roasted. Unexpectedly, his Taiji heart was aroused by this simple tone. Like a mad dog that was throwing a tantrum, he spun and ran wildly without any shame or impatience. Chapter 374. Fang Yan had never experienced such a thing. Just because he heard a song, no, just a simple tune, it could drive the Tai Chi pole to wake up and spin. In the past, he could only use the heart of Tai Chi when he was in extreme danger. This was like discovering a new continent, which made Fang Yan feel fresh and shocked. The heart of Tai Chi spun faster and faster, and the vortex of Tai Chi sank deeper and deeper. The vortex formed a black hole that could swallow everything that was rolled up. His dantian was burning hot, and this heat spread to his whole body. Fang Yan's whole body also became warm. It was a world of ice and snow outside, and the warmth inside was not too high. However, it was like there was a sun rising above Fang Yan's head, exerting heat only on him. It was steaming hot. It was still the same monotonous and dull sound, repeating over and over again. Sometimes it was about to explode, but it was fiercely suppressed. Then it exploded, and it was suppressed again. Sometimes it sank, and there was no sound at all. The soft sigh of the lonely old man was gone, and the crying of the wind was gone. The wind stopped, and the person died. The world was quiet. It was silent, just like the fate of many people. Just when you could no longer feel its presence and thought that everything was over, it would emerge from a faraway place, whimpering and sorrowful. It was like an old man who had been hurt by love. When she was young, she had a lover who loved her. They made a vow to hold hands and grow old together. Times changed, and the world changed. The two people who loved each other were either in different places, or forever separated by life and death. However, in countless lonely nights or rainy mornings, she could always think of the happy times they had together, but she could not remember the face that she used to think was very familiar. It was also like a young man with a difficult fate. He was smart and intelligent, a genius. Because he offended the son of his leader or superior, he was expelled and framed again and again. However, he was not willing to be ordinary for the rest of his life. He gritted his teeth and stubbornly worked hard day after day. He raised his head again and again, but he could never escape the big net woven by power and wealth. This flute sound was everyone's state of mind, it was everyone's fate, it was every heartbroken person's cry, and every pitiful person's loneliness and indignation. There were young girls crying, middle-aged men with red eyes, and some elderly people hiding in the shadows. Their expressions couldn't be seen, but they could feel their regret and helplessness. Fong Yan's Heart of Taiji merged with this tune. When the flute sound was deep and gentle, the heart of Taiji would spin gently and comfortably. When the sound of the flute was about to reach its peak, the speed of the Taiji heart also increased, as if it was about to explode. When the sound of the flute sank to the bottom of the valley, until there was no more sound, until the people had left and the tea house was already empty, Fong Yan's Taiji heart also came to an abrupt stop, like the calm surface of a lake. The sound of the flute rose again and pressed down again. It rose again and pressed down again. He lifted it up again and again, and pressed it down again and again. You light the fuse, anticipating the bang. The knife you stabbed was waiting for blood to splash on your face. You spent so much time and energy flirting and rubbing against each other, just for that moment when your soul and flesh merged and your essence erupted. Explosion. Everyone was waiting for it to explode. Fong Yan's Heart of Taiji also went through this process. Just as it was about to explode, shatter his dantian, and tear his body into a pile of meat paste, it returned to calmness again and again. Then it exploded again and again, and again and again. Over and over again, as if it was going to exhaust its entire life. Woo woo woo. The sound of the flute gradually faded away, then disappeared without a trace, without a sound. Finally, everything disappeared. The old woman sat in front of the window for a long time, but her lover didn't come. The young man struggled all his life, but still remained unknown. You lit the fuse, but it was a squib. You stabbed out, but it only stabbed empty air. You flirted and rubbed against each other, but met someone who didn't love you. All living beings suffered. This was an extremely sad story. Silence. It was still deathly quiet. The music had stopped for a long time, but the lights in the hall were still not turned on. Everyone stood silently in the darkness, not knowing if they were waiting for the sound of the flute to resound again from the desolate wilderness or the boundless sky, or if they were unable to extricate themselves from the silence of the past. The moonlight of the old days shone on me a few times. Playing the flute beside the plum blossom, summoning the jade woman, regardless of the cold and picking. A clear male voice suddenly rang out in the darkness. He soon is getting old now, and has forgotten about the spring breeze. But no wonder, the sparse flowers outside the bamboo, the cold fragrance enters the yao mat. Jiang country is silent. Sighing to the distant road, the night snow has begun to accumulate. Emerald jade is easy to exhaust, and Hong Yi is speechless. Long memories once held hands, 1,000 trees pressed down, and the West Lake was cold and blue. When will we see each other? The man was very talented in reciting. A lonely and helpless ancient poem was sung with his unique voice, making people feel deeply immersed in it. Loneliness followed him like a shadow. This poem and the flute sound of the music fanatic echoed each other and promoted each other. Music was the voice of the heart, and the words were the soul of the music. It made one's entire body go soft, as if life had lost all meaning. The person who read the words was General Xing. Although it was dark, Fang Yan could still recognize his voice. Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi was spinning because of the music fanatic's unknown flute sound, and General Xing was also deeply touched. It was one thing to have feelings, but to be able to express one's feelings in a poem was another. This was enough to show a person's cultural attainment and personal quality. Only after listening to General Xing's explanation could he have a deeper understanding of the music fanatic's song. Many people should be grateful to General Xing, right? This kid was always able to silently buy people's hearts. Pa! It wasn't until the man finished reading that the lights in the hall lit up in unison. The girls hurriedly wiped the tears from the corners of their eyes. Some rubbed their eyes and squeezed out a sad smile. Even more people lowered their heads and drank to hide their sadness. Pa! Someone clapped. Clap, 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 more people joined in. After a few breaths, the applause was like thunder. They didn't see the music fanatic, nor did they see a huge band or gorgeous instruments. There was only a clear flute, but it brought everyone to reflect on their lives. This was the music fanatic. Yi Fengxing rubbed his eyes and looked at Wan Qian beside him with red eyes. He said, "I don't know what's going on, but I just feel terrible. It's like that woman doesn't want me anymore." The music fanatic's reputation is well-deserved. Her music is not only pleasing to the ear, but it also cleanses the soul. Zhu Zidin, the iron-blooded man, was actually sobbing like a little girl. It's like listening to a sad story or watching a sad movie. Chen Yanqing said. Yi Fengxing turned to look at Fang Yan and said, "Fang Yan, how do you think you became like this?" Fang Yan looked like someone had poured a bucket of water on his head. His entire face was covered in sweat. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and beads of sweat rolled down his cheeks. His clothes were completely soaked, but the soaked clothes didn't stick to his body. Instead, they were lifted high by an invisible gas. Yes, Fang Yan's current state was like a wet doll that had been filled with air. His face was red, and there were flames burning in his eyes. The hot air above his head evaporated, and a white gas came out from his hair, forming a white pillar that shot towards the ceiling of the hole. "I'm going out." Fang Yan's voice was hoarse. His mouth was dry, and his throat felt like it was about to be roasted dry. There was no water in it at all. The music stopped, but his Taiji heart was still spinning crazily. Moreover, it was spinning faster and faster, completely out of his control. "Take a breather," Fang Yan said. He used 2 sentences to finish these 6 words, and there was a long pause in between. Hearing Yi Fengxing's exclamation, Zhu Zidin and the others all looked over. When they saw the smoke coming out of Fang Yan's head, they all turned pale with fright. "Fang Yan, are you okay? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Are you poisoned?" "Someone poisoned the wine. They're going too far. I'll F** King fight them. I'm fine." Fang Yan knew his family situation, and said with red eyes, "I'm going out for a walk. I just feel hot. It's too stuffy in here. I'm going out to take a breather." "We'll go with you," Yi Fengxing said. He did not know what Fang Yan's situation was, and was worried that it was a symptom of being poisoned. At this time, they had to stay by Fang Yan's side to prevent people with bad intentions or Jiang Junling from taking the opportunity to attack Fang Yan. Fang Yan did not stop them, and he was powerless to do so. He just wanted to rush out into the world of ice and snow, feel the cold wind, and drink a few mouthfuls of ice water. Fong Yan took a step forward. Rip, he had just taken a step when the clothes on his upper body could not withstand the force and were actually torn to pieces. The torn clothes were soaked in sweat, and once they left his body, they immediately fell to the ground. Fong Yan stood in the middle of the hall with his upper body bare, and his body was also covered in hot sweat. It was as if he had washed his body under the water faucet with his pants on, and suddenly the phone outside rang, and he was in a hurry to answer the call. Countless guests stared at the scene in front of them with their eyes wide open. This kid wanted to run naked. Fong Yan smiled awkwardly, but that smile tore the muscles on his face and made him feel pain. He wanted to explain that it was not what they thought, and that he did not know what was going on. However, his lips moved, but no words came out. First, he wanted to avoid the crowd that was watching him like a monkey in a zoo. So, he moved another step. Rip, rip, 2 more crisp sounds were heard, and the 2 trouser legs actually broke into 2 pieces, and then fell vertically on his 2 shoes. Hua, those guests who were staring at Fong Yan suddenly opened their eyes even wider, and couldn't get any wider. They looked at Fong Yan, who was standing naked in the middle of the hall, with faces full of fear and surprise, and felt that it was not a waste to come here today. Fong Yan looked at the surrounding guests' reactions, then looked at his crotch, and let out a blood-curdling scream as if he was being molested. The number 1 male idol of Swallow Dock, Fong Huahua, had fallen in Yan Jing's starlight heaven and earth today. Chapter 375. Fong Yan once wanted to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, but he never thought of becoming famous as a bird. He was not a very open person. He could swear to Guanyin Bodhisattva, Buddha, and all the gods in the world that he was still a virgin. But why did it become like this? He stood naked in the center of the stage. There was wind blowing, and his butt was slightly cold. He should cover his crotch or let everyone enjoy it. This was an unforgettable night because the pupils of every audience were blooming like fireworks exploding. This modern poem called Time was not written by Fong Yan. It was written after the banquet by a modern poet named Lu Shifan who was inspired. This poem was first published in a newspaper's poetry anthology. Later, it was reprinted and published by countless media, and was also quoted by the online media. It became popular for a while. Many people wanted to restore the story after seeing this poem, and even more people wanted to find out who he was standing naked in the center of the stage. Lu Shifan became famous again because of this poem, and became the representative of the avant-garde poets of Huaxia. As for the person involved, Fong Yan, the young virgin Fong Yan was scared out of his wits. The hot sweat on his body turned into cold sweat, sticky and stuck to his body. Because of the crazy rotation of the heart of Tai Chi, the strong Chi peeled off his clothes. And because of this explosion, the heart of Tai Chi in his body finally calmed down. Since he learned to bathe himself, no one except him had seen his naked body. Of course, the battle at East Sword Peak did not count. Fong Yan stubbornly believed that it was night time at that time, and other people must not have seen anything real, but this time was different. The lights were bright, and the crowd was crowded. Everyone's eyes were only focused on one point, and everyone's smile was so playful. No one wanted this to happen. Fong Yan opened his mouth and wanted to explain something, but the words that came out were so weak. Then, he covered his crotch and ran out of the clubhouse with his bare butt. When he ran to the door of the elevator, he remembered that the club's elevator required a card to go down. So he turned around and shouted, "Yi Fengxing! Yi Fengxing, hurry up!" Yi Fengxing, Zhu Ziden, and the others were still a little dumbfounded. Everyone had just played as the 7 warriors of Wolf Ivory Mountain. Why were they cosplaying as streaking demons in the blink of an eye? Even if you have a hobby in this area, you still have to inform your brothers in advance, right? How are we supposed to cooperate with you when we are not prepared for your sudden attack? The fat on Yifengxing's face kept twitching. He said to his brothers, "What is this? Anyway, I don't care what you guys think. This time, I won't be stripping with him. I won't take it off either." Zhu Ziden shook her head with a serious expression. "I would rather die than take it off," Wan Qian said with a serious expression. "If I take it off, I won't be able to face anyone." A man in black walked over, looked at Fang Yan and said, "Sir, we have all the spare clothes, if you need them, yes." Fang Yan interrupted him and said, "Quickly take me to change clothes." "Please come with me," the man in black said. Fang Yan didn't follow him. Instead, he jogged in front of him. After running a few steps, he felt that it wasn't safe, so he covered his crotch and retreated behind the man in black's butt. "Walk faster," Fang Yan said. "I'm in a hurry." The man in black had no choice but to quicken his pace. An evil smile that Fang Yan couldn't see appeared on his face. Fang Yan left, but the banquet scene exploded. "Oh my god, that kid, that guy called Fang Yan, did he just run around naked? Is this to celebrate? To celebrate his victory over Jiang Junling? What a face of a villain intoxicated by success. How could he do such a shameful thing? This kind of person really isn't a qualified gentleman. Oh my god, I actually forgot to take a picture. Did you guys take a picture? This kid's body is quite nice." General Xing turned to look at Li Guochang and asked, "What is this for?" Li Guochang's expression was dignified as he said in a deep voice, "This kid is too cunning. He doesn't act according to common sense. On the surface, he looks crazy, but every word he says and every action he does has a hidden meaning. Otherwise, Jiang Junling wouldn't have suffered such a big loss in his hands. He actually ran around naked in public. With such a big sacrifice, his intention must not be small. What does he want to do? I still can't understand for the time being." General Xing sighed and said, "This is really a guy who thinks of himself as a piece of mud. Meeting such an opponent is really not a lucky thing. No wonder my younger brother kept failing. This time, my younger brother must have had a very serious fall, right? I really should go back and comfort him." Li Guochang smiled and said, "At this time, what he doesn't need the most is comfort, so I didn't follow him back." General Xing said with a chuckle. Fang Yan has a very reasonable saying. "In the past, I pretended not to care about a lot of things, but now I really don't care about those things. I really don't care." "That's because you have thought it through," Li Guochang said. "Yes. I have thought it through." General Xing sighed. "This kid has taught us a lesson." On the big screen in the room, the scene of Fang Yan covering his crotch was playing. The girl in red giggled and said, "Mr. Fang's body is not bad. He also seems to be in a good mood." The handsome man standing behind said. This was not a room, but a fresh and elegant greenhouse. The four sides of the greenhouse were made of transparent glass, and one could see the dark world covered with ice and snow outside. It was windy and snowing outside, but it was as warm as spring here. All kinds of red and yellow flowers were blooming brilliantly, and there were butterflies dancing among the flowers. In the middle of the flowers, there was a woman in white whose age could not be seen. Her facial features were not stunning, but everyone who saw her felt that she was beautiful. They felt that her eyes were beautiful, her eyebrows were beautiful, her mouth was beautiful, the way she spoke was beautiful, the way she held her chin and thought was beautiful, and every move she made was beautiful. Some women won with their faces, and some women's temperament could kill everything. They were Luqi, crazy for music. This was one of the 7 addicts of Huaxia, Luchi, although her song made the little children outside cry until their clothes were wet, she did not come out to see anyone from the beginning to the end. "Master, are you unhappy?" the boy in white beside him asked. "Something strange happened just now," Luchi said. "What strange thing?" "Someone matched my song," Luchi said. The boy laughed and said, "Master, how can someone match your song? The song you played is a new one, and you haven't even given it a name." "I can feel his existence," Luchi said. "That's a kind of musical resonance." "There's such a thing," the boy said. "I don't feel it at all." "Master, what should we do?" Luchi thought for a moment and said, "Go and invite him over. I want to have a chat with him." "Invite him over." "But master, I don't know who he is." Luchi frowned slightly and said softly, "He must be a person who likes music." "Master, many people like your music." "He must be a very elegant person." "Master, I understand. Is there anything else?" "You know, I'm very stupid. There are hundreds of guests outside. I'm afraid I can't find him." This problem made Luchi feel very awkward. She said, "He should be older and has some experience that young people don't have. Go out and say that I'm looking for a fated person. I think everyone will respond. You can determine who is the fated person I'm looking for based on everyone's reaction." "Master, I understand," the boy said. The boy in white left the greenhouse and went straight to the banquet hall. The charity auction was about to begin. The guests gathered together and did not leave. The boy's clear eyes scanned the audience, but he could not determine who his master was talking about. He could only say aloud, "Ladies and gentlemen." No one paid attention to him. Who would care about what a child was shouting? They were all discussing Fong Yan's streaking incident. "I'm Luchi's disciple, Lutong." The boy in white was a little angry and raised his voice. Swoosh, a person's name was like a tree's shadow. As soon as the name Luchi came out, everyone stopped talking. They looked at the boy in white in surprise and thought, "Luchi's disciple. What is he doing here?" As the host of the party, Wang Xiaoyao quickly walked to Lutong and asked, "Little boy, are you a disciple of Master Shui?" "I'm not a little boy," Lutong said unhappily. "I'm Luchi's disciple." "Okay, you're not a little boy," Wang Xiaoyao said with a smile. "Then tell me, what do you want?" "Master asked me to find a fated person," Lutong said. "A fated person?" Everyone's eyes lit up. There were hundreds of guests present. Who wouldn't want to be Mr. Luchi's fated person? If they could meet Mr. Luchi, it would be something that would make them famous in Beijing. It would be as eye-catching as Fong Yan streaking. Of course, their reputation would definitely be much better than the former. "Which fated person?" Wang Xiaoyao asked with a smile. She thought that if she could be that fated person, it would be a wonderful thing that could be spread around. "I don't know," Lutong said frankly. "Master said that he and Master have a resonance in music. He should be a gentleman, right? Resonance in music. A gentleman of respectability." Many people turned their attention to General Xing's face, because after Luchi's flute ended, General Xing recited a poem that suited the occasion very well. General Xing was the fated person that Luchi wanted to meet. Chapter 376. More and more people were looking at them, and Lutong knew that the person he was looking for had appeared. He walked to General Xing and asked in a clear voice, "Are you the fated person my master is looking for?" General Xing laughed and reached out to touch Lutong's head, but Lutong dodged. He didn't like people touching his head. General Xing didn't care and said, "Do you think I'm the fated person your master is looking for?" Everyone is looking at you. You should be, right? Lu Tong said innocently. I don't know. General Xing said frankly. However, if Mr. Lu Qi invites me, I'd be happy to express my admiration to her. I've enjoyed Mr. Lu Qi's masterpiece twice, but I've never met her. I've always felt deeply regretful. Lu Tong looked at Wang Xiaoyao, who said with a smile, after Master Shui's flute ended, Mr. Jiang recited a poem on the eyes. Wang Xiaoyao recited the poem again, and Lu Tong's eyes lit up. He said, it's very appropriate. He's the resonant person my master is looking for. Lu Tong looked at General Xing and said, come with me. Master wants to see you. Thank you, young sir. General Xing teased. Humph. Lu Tong snorted and led the way. See you later, everyone. General Xing greeted everyone with a smile. All the guests looked at General Xing with envy. Not everyone had the opportunity to be invited by Lu Qi drinking a cup of tea with Lu Qi, chatting about music for a quarter of an hour, and when General Xing came out of Lu Qi's room, he would become Lu Qi's guest and music confidant in all kinds of rumors. This was really helpful to his reputation. Between the two brothers, the younger brother, Jiang Junling, was humiliated and left, but the elder brother was invited by Lu Qi. It had to be said that the elder brother was much luckier than the younger brother. Perhaps the elder brother was not as bad as the outside world said. Lu Tong knocked on the door, and without waiting for his master to respond, he pushed the door open and said, Master, I've invited him. Lu Qi was repairing a pot of chrysanthemum, and did not answer or even turn around to welcome the guest. Lu Qi did not speak, and neither did General Xing, who was standing at the door. Lu Tong looked at his master and then at General Xing, touched his head and left. Tashaw! Tashaw! Screech! Lu Qi cut off 3 chrysanthemums so that the flower cluster wouldn't look too crowded and the flowers wouldn't be squeezed out of shape. The sparse but well-proportioned feeling made people feel relaxed and happy. Lu Qi seemed to have forgotten the guest behind him. General Xing also treated himself as an invisible person. He watched Lu Qi prune the chrysanthemums, he watched Lu Qi prune the plum blossoms, he watched Lu Qi build the welcoming pine, he watched Lu Qi build the cactus. After a quarter of an hour, General Xing bowed slightly to Lu Qi's back and then turned to leave. Lu Tong pushed the door open and said, Master, he has left. He left, Lu Qi replied. He's not the person you're looking for. No. I'm sorry, Master. He looked very experienced and elegant, and he even recited a poem that matched Xiaoxing's poem very well. Everyone said it was him. Master, how do you know it wasn't him? Lu Tong asked, puzzled. You didn't speak, not even a word. I'm listening at the door. His footsteps are too soft, said Lu Qi, too light. Lu Tong was even more puzzled. What did light footsteps have to do with whether he was a soulmate or not? His footsteps are deliberately light because he has distracting thoughts, Lu Qi said. It is impossible for a person with distracting thoughts to resonate with my Xiaoxing. He is a frank and selfless person. Master, since he is not the soulmate you're looking for, why did he stay in the greenhouse for so long? Because he didn't want to leave. He couldn't leave either. Why couldn't he leave even if he didn't want to? Lu Qi did not explain this to his disciple. He was still young and did not understand how complicated the thoughts of adults were. The man just now, he was invited in by his disciple in full view of everyone. If he left as soon as he came in, what would people outside think of him? If he stood in the greenhouse for a while and then went out, the outside world would have a different interpretation of his meeting, wouldn't they? As for why she let him stay, it was because she owed him something. This was her compensation for him. She invited him in and had already pushed him to the eyes of everyone. If she kicked him out and made him lose face, it would be tantamount to forming a deadly feud between the two sides. She just wanted to make music and didn't want to make enemies with others. This was also the reason why the general bowed to Lu Qi when he left without a word of dialogue between them. She understood, and so did he. "Master, I'll go out and help you look for him again," Lu Tong said. "No need." Lu Qi shook her head and said, "If we are fated, we will meet again in the future. If we meet, ask him to name this song." "I'm quite curious," Lu Tong said with some regret. "What kind of person can resonate with Master's music?" Lu Qi stopped talking and focused on trimming the flower branches in front of her again. Except for music, she did not have much interest in other people or things. The buildings were getting taller and the Sihiyuan were getting fewer and fewer. It was also because things were rare that the remaining Sihiyuan had become a unique landscape in Four Corner City. And any one of them was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Zijing Alley, this was an inconspicuous narrow alley on the map, which could only accommodate one car. Two cars could not go side by side. However, this was a very special alley. It was next to the Red Wall and close to the Privy Council. The location of the wall was the highest authority in Yanjing City. The Red Wall had been expanded once, and the surrounding buildings were demolished, but this old alley was preserved. The alley was simple and old, the gray walls, red tiles, and the glazed roof of the courtyard door were covered with snow, wrapping these old houses in a bright new coat. Every courtyard door was closed. On such a snowy night, no one was willing to open the door to face the wind and snow at this time. A champagne-colored Bentley was parked at the door of an old house, and the driver was a beautiful and plump woman. As soon as the tigress stopped the car, Jiang Junling, who was sitting in the passenger seat, pushed the door and got out. The tigress pushed the door and walked out, ready to help the man knock the lock and call the door. "Let me do it," Jiang Junling said. The tigress stepped back and stood aside to guard Jiang Junling. Jiang Junling said he would knock the door, but he stood on the stone steps at the door for a long time without moving. After a long time, he sighed softly and asked, "Is it very shameful?" "Victory and defeat are common in war. Young master lost because he underestimated the enemy," the tigress said frankly. She was shocked by the little guy she met for the second time. He actually had such ability. She really underestimated him before. She said that she underestimated the enemy. Not only Jiang Junling underestimated the enemy, but she also underestimated the enemy. She was deceived by her beautiful smile. "I didn't underestimate the enemy." Jiang Junling shook his head. "I won't make such a mistake." Pa. Jiang Junling reached out and knocked on the copper lock of the wooden door. After a while, the wooden door trembled and opened. The old housekeeper stood at the door and said with a smile, "Second young master, master is waiting for you in the room to play chess." "Thank you," Jiang Junling said respectfully to the old housekeeper. "Go quickly." "I have already prepared the chess pieces," the old housekeeper said with a smile and turned to close the courtyard door. Jiang Junling took off his windbreaker and scarf and hung them on a hanger in the corner of the room. Then, he sat in front of the chessboard and said, "I'll play first with the black piece." "You first," the old man in the sheepskin coat sitting opposite him said. So, Jiang Junling made the first move. "I expected Swallow Doc's reaction, but I didn't expect it to be so big. Is it necessary for a few wild children who are causing trouble outside?" "Who called you?" "Young chief." The old man placed a white piece in one hand and held a cup of hot milk in the other. "He is in charge of contacting Swallow Doc. When he first took office, he brought people to Swallow Doc to see that gentleman. He called him a disciple and was extremely respectful." "How serious is it?" Jiang Junling asked in a low voice. Another black piece was placed. If it was only because he was humiliated at the banquet, an old man like his grandfather who had experienced many hardships wouldn't say the words, "a crushing defeat." "Your fifth uncle's transfer has been delayed," the old man said. "He was supposed to go to a very important position, which we have been seeking for a long time. But tonight, someone from another family was placed in that position." "Who is it?" Jiang Junling said, gritting his teeth. He felt a faint pain in his heart. Fang Yan was right. He wasn't his opponent. He didn't see him as an opponent from the beginning. Being humiliated in front of everyone or being ridiculed by the guests who came to this banquet. What was the big deal? It was nothing more than a bad reputation and a dusty future. It was not good for him, but it was also good for him. The Tao addict's words, "One should have a son like Jiang Junling," pushed him to the front of the stage. His every move was infinitely magnified. If he could disappear or be quiet for a while under everyone's eyes, he was willing to pay such a price. However, what Fang Yan wanted was obviously more than that. He was not only targeting himself, but the whole family of the general family. He set up this shocking situation and put on a wonderful show. He used the power of all parties to cut off a very powerful arm of the general family. His own face was damaged, but the general family or the old man in front of him just smiled lightly and said, "The child is naughty." However, he forcibly ruined the fifth uncle's transfer. This was clearly a punishment for the general family from above. Some people from above wanted to kill the chicken to show the lion, so Fang Yan pushed the general family out. The general family became the chicken that was killed to show the monkey. This was no longer a joke, nor was it a child's quarrel. It was an attack that hurt the general family and made them bleed. He took the initiative to attack the general family. "Who is it?" Jiang Junling felt his blood boil, and his hand holding the chess piece trembled. "Who took the fifth uncle's position?" "Pa." The old man decisively took a white piece and said, "Swallow dock." Yi Daoling. Chapter 377. People from the Yi family. Jiang Junling grinned. His smile was as cold as the first snow. No wonder they put in so much effort. What? Not reconciled. The old man threw the white chess piece in his hand into the white jade porcelain jar, took a sip of milk, and asked aloud. "So what if I'm not reconciled?" "In the end, he won. I heard that you and that child had some unhappiness, and I just watched happily. You're still young, and he's also young. Why should old guys like us get involved in young people's affairs?" This time, he really made people look at him in a different light. Our Jiang family spent so much effort and spent so many resources. The matter that was already set in stone was forcefully ruined by him. This is no longer a child's play. This is a grand strategy that ordinary people can't plan. Even some people with high political intelligence ratings don't have this kid's brain. Think about it, how can a few children's jokes affect the decision of this level? The old man's eyes became deep, as if there was an endless river in them, and anyone who jumped into it would be drowned forever. He said in a low voice, "If this is just a coincidence, because that brat pushed it from the outside, it just so happened to conform to some people's intentions, and your fifth uncle's position was swapped, I can still accept it. But if that brat predicted this situation from the beginning, then you, young friend, are really worrying." Jiang Junling pondered for a long time, and still truthfully said to his grandfather, "Perhaps, Grandpa's worry about him is necessary." Maybe from the beginning, he had already predicted such an outcome. The old man's expression became more and more dignified, then he grinned and said, "Interesting, really interesting. I've lived for so long, but I never thought I would fight with a kid." "Grandpa." Jiang Junling clenched a black chess piece tightly in his palm. A person like his grandfather actually regarded Fang Yan as an opponent, where would the face of the younger generation be? He said firmly, Fang Yen, leave it to me. Do you still have confidence? The old man looked at his grandson with a burning gaze and asked aloud. I've never lost confidence, Jiang Junling said. He is an opponent worthy of respect, but I will solve his problem. The old man sighed and said, why would I have a conflict with him? Such a person. How good would it be if they could become friends? I won't get involved in this matter, and I won't let them get involved either. Since you're the one who brought it up, then you'll be the one to take it back. But, let's calm things down first. The blow this time was too heavy. Since that person had made a move, it meant that they were already angry. He had to give them some face. Also, Swallow Dock isn't as simple as you think. In the past, everyone tried their best to ignore their existence. He didn't provoke them, nor did he give them any important tasks. You, on the other hand, let them take advantage of you. With Yi Daoling's position occupied, his future is limitless. I understand. Jiang Junling nodded. I didn't think it through this time. This is a dead knot. You can't untie it. Even if you didn't go to the banquet today, what about next time? What about the next time? There will always be a time when they meet. You're just a partner chosen by him. The old man finished the milk in the cup and said, I'm old. I can't stay up all night. Grandpa, I'm sorry. Jiang Junling said with a face full of guilt. If it weren't for his matter, Grandpa would have already fallen asleep at this time. Okay, go back. Take a bath and have a good sleep. When you wake up, many things still haven't changed. You are still Jiang Junling, and he is still Fang Yen. Your sister-in-law may have some gossip, but you don't have to take it to heart. Women always have long hair and short knowledge. They don't understand the complexity and danger of the world. Grandpa, I will go to Fifth Uncle's house to apologize to him. Jiang Junling said frankly. This matter started because of me. I must give him an explanation. Jiang Junling helped Grandpa lie down on the bed, covered him with the quilt, and turned off the light in the room. Then, he closed the door and retreated. Standing on the eaves of the corridor and looking at the pure white snow in the small courtyard, Jiang Junling reached out his hand toward the sky. A small flower fell into his palm. It was light and cool, but it didn't hurt or stimulate him at all. He looked at the small flower and murmured, why do I have to lower myself to the same level as a small flower? The small flower felt the temperature of his palm and slowly melted into a drop of water. It will eventually be melted. In a white shirt and black suit, Fang Yen, who stood in front of the mirror, couldn't believe that the handsome man was himself. It was said that beauty was a feast for the eyes. Seeing a beautiful woman, one didn't need to eat. Fang Yen, on the other hand, was relieving his worries with beauty. When he saw his image in the mirror, all the awkwardness, embarrassment, and hostility that he had suppressed in his heart were swept away. He felt that his mood had suddenly become sunny. The clothes fit me very well, as if they were specially prepared for me. Fang Yen said with a smile. Did they really prepare it for me? The man in black only responded with a smile and didn't answer. Right, can I see your president and thank her? Fang Yen asked. The man in black shook his head. No. I'm just a bodyguard. I received an order from the walkie-talkie to bring you here to change clothes. The man in black said. I've never seen our president. I can only convey your request to the manager, and then the manager conveys it to the higher-ups. I won't force it, Fang Yen said. Next time I have the chance to see her, I'll definitely call you. The man in black grinned and said, that's great. The charity auction had just begun, and the most exciting part had yet to come. But Fang Yen was too embarrassed to return to the scene. Who knew if someone would misunderstand and think that he deliberately took off his clothes and ran around naked? These clothes, can I wear them outside? Fong Yan asked. Up to you. The bodyguard in black said. Thank you. Fong Yan said. Please send me out. No problem. The bodyguard in black said. Fong Yan followed behind the bodyguard in black and carefully walked towards the elevator. As he walked, he prayed that he wouldn't meet any acquaintances. Fong Yan. A familiar voice was heard. Fong Yan turned around and saw Xia standing in the brightly lit side hall with a smile on his face. Fong Yan opened his mouth to smile, but the smile was incomparably twisted and painful. He was too embarrassed to look into Xia's eyes and said, "The auction has just begun. Why did you come out?" "The assistant is here to help. I received a call and need to go back to deal with some matters." She looked at the suit on Fong Yan with interest and said, "It seems that you don't plan to stay anymore, do you?" "They are playing here. Do you think it's suitable for me to stay here?" Fong Yan asked seriously. Xia thought for a moment and said, "Not suitable." Fong Yan's face was filled with pain, and Xia giggled. Xia Ji took a step forward and naturally held Fong Yan's arm. He said to the bodyguard in black, "Sorry to trouble you, I'll accompany him down." The bodyguard in black knew that his part was over, so he took the initiative to press the elevator button and respectfully sent the two of them off. The elevator descended quickly, and the scenery in front of them kept changing. The outside world looked like a blurry abstract painting. "I'm sorry." Fong Yan looked at the world of ice and snow outside and apologized seriously. "You knew it would be like this from the beginning, didn't you?" Xia and Fong Yan stood side by side, not turning around to look at Fong Yan's expression. "I don't know," Fong Yan said. Xia Ji frowned slightly. They were all smart people. If Fong Yan was still unwilling to confess to him, then wouldn't her friendship be a bit too much of a waste? "I don't know," Fong Yan explained. "This is a big gamble. I brought my friends to make a big bet, but whether I lose or win, I can only leave it to fate. This is not your style," Xia said. "Although I don't have many opportunities to interact with you, I know very well that you are a very cautious person." "That's right. I am indeed cautious. However, sometimes I have to take the risk to do some things," Fong Yan said helplessly. "When they target me, I can be lucky enough to defuse them time and time again. If they start targeting my family, my friends, this is too dangerous. I can't put my family and friends in danger. That's why you forced Jiang Junling to make a move. Yes, he has to cooperate with me in this scene. No one else can," Fong Yan said. "Only when he makes a move will the pressure be stronger, and this bet will have more weight. If. What if you lose the bet?" "So what?" Fong Yan asked. "I am a nobody. Everyone knows that I am a nobody. In their eyes, I have no dignity, no face, and even nothing to lose. Even if I lose the bet and get expelled by them, it will only make them laugh for a while. Maybe when they wake up tomorrow morning, many of them will forget my name. What do I have to lose? For you, this is a bet you must win. I may not win, but I will definitely not lose," Fong Yan said. Clang, the elevator reached the first floor. Before the elevator door opened, Xia turned to look at the side of Fong Yan's face and said, "For a while I was very angry. I was worried that I would also be your chess piece, and now?" Fong Yan asked seriously. "Now? I'm just a little worried. Worried that I will become your chess piece in the future." Fong Yan grinned, revealing 2 rows of white teeth, and said, "Xia, you don't need to worry like this, because we are friends. Very good friends. Xia was about to speak, but saw a girl waiting in the snow, whose eyes were shining like the stars in the sky, and said with a smile, "So, what about her?" Chapter 378. The night was dark and cold. But because of the snow outside, the whole world didn't look that dark. It was as if a thin layer of gauze was covering the top of his head, and the outline of everything in the world could be vaguely seen. The lobby of the club was magnificent, and there was an endless stream of guests coming and going. Everyone looked elegant and joyful. They were dressed in luxurious clothes and chatted with each other. The tires of the cars in the distance crushed the ice and snow with a screeching sound. The mixture of ice and water splattered everywhere. The girl was wearing a light yellow one-piece dress and a thick gray cloak-style plush coat. On his feet was a pair of white leather boots. The heels of the boots were nailed into the snow, like a delicate flower growing on the vast earth. The front of the jacket was open, revealing her flat, slender stomach and slightly protruding breasts. Her hands were casually in her pockets, just like those young girls whistling on their way home from school or walking on the ancient street covered with ginkgo leaves with headphones plugged in. Youthful, fashionable, beautiful, sexy. There was a gentle and beautiful smile on her face. Her lips were curled and rosy, her eyebrows were delicate and slender, and her beautiful nose was slightly red from the cold. However, this little bit of redness made her look more childlike and playful. If he took a step forward, he would be completely exposed by the bright lights of the hotel lobby. If he took a step back, he would be swallowed up by the endless darkness and the noisy world. She stood between the light and the dark, as if she had come from the darkness and retreated from the light. People couldn't help but be attracted and touched by her. She looked at Fang Yan. She only looked at Fang Yan. Anyone with eyes would be able to see that she was waiting for him. Fang Yan was pleasantly surprised for a moment, but then his heart ached a little. He looked at Summer and said, "She is a very special person." "I can see that." Xia Chen gave the girl a meaningful look and said, "Looks like I have to take my leave early." After that, without waiting for Fang Yan's response, he waved at the girl and walked toward the luxury car that the driver had driven over. Fang Yan walked up to the girl and their eyes met. Fang Yan grinned and said, "You're not hungry to eat, you don't know how to drink, and you're too casual when it comes to singing. I don't know what other men invite girls to do. How about I invite you to admire the city of white snow? It's my honor." The girl squinted her eyes and smiled. Thus, the two of them walked side by side towards the world of ice and snow outside. Because of the girl's sudden decision, the men and women pretending to be guests in the clubhouse lobby, the black people hiding in the dark corners, and the driver dozing off in the car immediately got busy. "Miss, if you travel on foot, how do you determine the security level? Should the star group follow up? Should the light team prepare emergency measures? Should the convoy follow them closely?" Miss gestured for me not to follow them. After a long time, a man's voice came from their earphones. "Miss, you don't have to worry about safety when you're with him. Leave a car to follow them from afar. Don't get close." Thus, everything calmed down. Fang Yan was very happy. Even if he didn't say or do anything, he walked step by step from the Maple Leaf Club to the South Bridge, from the South Bridge to Causeway Alley, and from Causeway Alley to Green Spring Garden, and he didn't feel irritated or tired at all. He wanted to keep walking like this. Can you imagine? Walking was full of happiness. That happiness was like golden soup that was about to overflow from his face. The girl was also very happy. When Fang Yan took a step, she also took a step. Since Fang Yan was walking fast, she was walking fast as well. When Fang Yan walked slow, her footsteps also slowed down. When Fang Yan said he wanted to invite her to look at this city of snow, she really looked at this city of snow very seriously. Looking at the snow on the ground, there were many pairs of footprints in the snow, densely packed, coming and going. But she knew that the two sets of footprints belonged to a pair of intimate lovers. Because they were so close to each other, the footprints showed that they were willing to live and die together and never want to be separated. Looking at the snow on the wall, the swing inside the wall, the road outside the wall, the pedestrians outside the wall, the smile of the beauty inside the wall. The laughter gradually disappeared, but the affectionate was annoyed by the heartless. Would there be a beauty living inside the wall? Did the beauty like to laugh? Looking at the snow on the trees, the heavy snow pressed down on the branches. Looking at the snow on the roof, the car looked like a tortoise shell. Looking at the boiling snow in the sky, looking at the snow falling on the tip of his nose and eyelashes, every place was exquisite, and every place was interesting. They walked from Tiantong Courtyard to Yenjing University, from Yenjing University to Shuemu University, from Shuemu University to Renmin University, and from Renmin University to Aviation University. The girl finally stopped. She looked at Fang Yan and said, "I'm hungry." "I'm hungry too," Fang Yan said. They had walked a very, very long road. It was 10 kilometers, not 20 kilometers. Or it could be said that they had already walked one round around Yenjing City. All the students knew that there would be a food street in front of every school. The girl said she wanted to eat noodles, so Fang Yan found a stewed noodles restaurant. "Boss, 2 bowls of stewed noodles," Fang Yan shouted. "One big and one small. Put more mutton and less noodles." "Boss." "2 big bowls," the girl corrected Fang Yan's words. Then she also said, "Put more mutton and less noodles." In some aspects, they had reached an agreement. The chubby boss was amused by their conversation and said, "2 bowls of stewed noodles, put more mutton and less noodles." Time passed really fast, or it could be said that the chubby boss's actions were really fast. As soon as they ordered the noodles, the stewed noodles with more mutton and less noodles were delivered to them. Fang Yan used his chopsticks to pick it up. There was indeed a lot of mutton, and of course, there was also a lot of noodles. Fang Yan smiled at the boss, and the boss waved his hand, indicating that it was not a big deal. So, the two of them buried their heads in the noodles. Fang Yan ate up the mutton and the noodles. Then he drank up the noodle soup. Strange. Why was the noodle so delicious? The girl ate up the mutton, ate more than half of the noodles, and then drank a mouthful of noodle soup. She clutched her stomach and said in pain, "No, I really can't eat anymore." Fang Yan looked at her oily lips and smiled as he took out a tissue and handed it to her. She did not mind that it was dirty and took it to wipe her mouth. "Boss, give me a bottle of wine," Fang Yan said. He suddenly wanted to drink, preferably the strongest Shadozi. "Boss, give me 2 bottles of wine," the girl said. She also wanted to drink, preferably the strongest Highland White. The chubby boss told them that there was no Shadozi or Highland White here. So, they ordered a 56% ergoto together. Fang Yan unscrewed the bottle cap, but did not hand over the wine in his hand. He asked, "Can you drink it?" She was a girl, and she was still a little girl. Not everyone could resist such strong wine. The girl took the bottle and gulped it down in one gulp. "Do you know what I can't do?" the girl asked back. Only at this time did she show a little pride. Tonight, she had nothing to do with nobility, pride, or genius. She was just a friendly, natural, and cute girl next door. "I can't think of it for the time being," Fang Yan said. He unscrewed the other bottle of ergoto, raised his head, and gulped down a mouthful. Eating noodles, admiring the snow, meeting a beauty at night, and giving him 3 taels of strong wine. It was really a great joy in life. Fong Yen looked at the girl and said, I know you're fine. You'll definitely be fine. You're so smart, nothing can stump you. How could something happen to you? But, I've called your number more than 1,340 times. My phone has a digital record, but I've never been able to get through. I know you'll be fine, but I can't help but worry. I've been waiting for you to come out to see me. I thought, if you don't come out, I'll go to your door. Although I don't know where your house is, someone will know. If I can't, I'll ask each and every one of your houses. Eventually, I'll find out. I know you have your difficulties and difficulties. I've seen this kind of plot too many times. Girls from big families like you are like the princesses and princesses of the past. Your life is not free. I also know your family doesn't like me and don't want to see me. Let them scold me, let them scold me, let them beat me. I think I'll be able to lure you out, and I'll be able to see you. Fong Yen looked at her beautiful eyes with a face full of guilt and said, only when I see you with my own eyes can I know that you're fine, that nothing has happened to you. I'm fine. The girl's eyes were red, but she raised her head to stop the tears from flowing. For her, tears were a sign that her body was weak. It was easy to make a mistake at a time like this, which would give her opponent an opportunity to take advantage of. Even if she thought that there was nothing in this world that she couldn't do. But there were some emotions that she really couldn't control. I've always been fine. I know that Eagle Moo is one of your men, Fong Yen said. Yes, Eagle Moo is one of my men, the girl said. I know that you invited Jiang Junling. Yes, I had someone invite Jiang Junling, the girl said. I know that you prepared this suit for me. Yes, I prepared this suit for you, the girl said. She looked up and down at Fong Yan's body and said, it looks like it fits you, but I don't understand. Why? Fong Yan asked. Why did you send Eagle Moo to help me? Why did you invite Jiang Junling on my behalf? Why did you prepare clothes for me? And why, take a bullet for me? Chapter 379. Sowing in spring and harvesting in autumn, the cycle of karma. Sowing in spring, harvesting in autumn, the cycle of karma. Sowing a grain in spring, harvesting 10,000 in autumn. This was a well-known fact. Fong Yan knew that she was very nice to him, but he didn't understand why she was so nice to him. Do you still remember the first time we met? The girl asked in a crisp voice. Yes. Fong Yan nodded. Such a beautiful girl was hard to come by anywhere. Moreover, she gave him a show of strength the first time they met. Even the cold and elegant Lu Chaoga didn't give him such a strong sense of oppression. I've already said it very clearly, the girl said. That day, everything was alive and the sun was just right. The girl stood in front of the podium and after her self-introduction, she wanted to sit in the first row. Fong Yan asked her to give him a reason that could convince him. She said that she wanted to be closer to him and see him more clearly. I don't believe it, Fong Yan said. He didn't believe in love at first sight, and he didn't believe that the girl in front of him would fall in love with anyone at first sight. The girl raised her pretty face again and gulped down a big mouthful of liquor. The boss of Fatso was dumbfounded. Then, he gave Fong Yan a thumbs up and gave him a meaningful smile. Fong Yan wanted to rush up and beat him up. If it wasn't for the big bowl of stewed noodles with enough mutton. Chinitian looked at Fong Yan and asked, you really don't have any impression at all? No, Fong Yan said. Bede. The girl looked at Fong Yan's face and said word by word, Jianfang Ridge. Bede. Jianfang Ridge. A crack appeared on the sturdy flagstones, and bright light shone through the crack. Fong Yan felt the divine light falling from the sky. His mind was still in a state of shock, but it was suddenly brought to the distant past. When was it? Was it when he was 13 or 14? At that time, Fong Yen was just an inexperienced youth, or rather, a half-grown child. At that time, Fong Hui was awe-inspiring. His legs were not paralyzed, and his Tai Chi skills were rarely matched. At that time, Fong Hui was highly respected in the Jianghu. He had many disciples and hundreds of friends. He was loved and respected by the people in the circle. At that time, the old drunkard Mo Qingdi was like the sun in the sky, a rising star in the inner river. He defeated close to 100 tyrants, trampled on enemies from all directions, and shone brightly. At that time, the Fong clan wasn't in such dire straits that they were bullied and humiliated by others. At that time, Fong Yen was just a playful monkey. One summer, Fong Yen accompanied his grandfather to Beidei to attend a high-level conference. Grandpa had a mission to complete and had to accompany the leaders of the conference, so he couldn't accompany Fong Yen. Thus, Fong Yen, freed from his restraints, roamed around Beidei. Fong Yen walked along the shore of Beidei, passed through the security zone, and arrived at the free sea area where tourists could freely enter and exit. The beach, the sea breeze, the bikinis, the beauties were as numerous as the clouds, and the temptation was like wine. It was a feast for the eyes. The young Fong Huohuo secretly swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, then continued walking forward. When he walked to the edge of the road, he saw a black off-road vehicle parked there. He glanced at the off-road vehicle, and the driver of the off-road vehicle glared at him. The smell of blood. Fong Yen smelled the smell of blood. Fong Yen was born in an ancient martial arts family. Although he was young, he clearly knew that those were the eyes to kill. Although some people looked ferocious, their eyes did not have any hostility. This man was different. He looked ordinary, but his eyes were like a hungry wolf staring at a piece of fat meat. As long as he opened his mouth, he could swallow you whole. Fong Yen was vigilant, so he didn't directly clash with him. He turned into a supermarket and bought a bottle of mineral water to drink. After walking for such a long distance, he was indeed a little thirsty. When he was paying, he saw two men quickly rushing toward the van from the supermarket's glass. Their footsteps were steady, and their speed was surprisingly fast. It was obvious that they were martial artists. One of the long-haired men was holding a bedsheet in his arms, and there was something wrapped in the bedsheet. Fong Yen didn't know what was inside, but when they opened the door and got into the van, a small foot fell out from the bedsheet. It was a child's foot. Human traffickers. Fong Yen cursed and rushed out of the supermarket. Just as he was about to approach the off-road vehicle, the vehicle suddenly started and charged forward at high speed. Perhaps it was the temperament of a teenager, or perhaps it was because his blood was boiling. Fong Yen knew that if this child was kidnapped, then one or even several families would be destroyed and sent to hell. He must save this child. Fong Yan's running speed couldn't keep up with the car's full speed. The off-road vehicle gradually moved further and further away, and finally disappeared before Fong Yan's eyes. Fong Yan didn't give up. He used the tracking skill he learned to closely follow the off-road vehicle's unique tire tracks, searching and following. Finally, Fong Yan found the off-road vehicle at Jianfeng Ridge, which was 20 kilometers away from Beidei. He searched according to the shoe prints around the off-road vehicle, and then found traces of human presence in an extremely secluded cave. Fong Yan found the green snake grass in the mountain stream, then found sulfur and a few other flammable materials at the entrance of the cave. When he ignited the green snake grass, and thick smoke billowed into the cave, he covered his mouth and nose with a wet cloth and rushed in. The resistance was weak. Those martial artists who might not be weak were caught off guard and breathed in the poisonous smoke from the green snake grass. One by one, they became weak and were quickly knocked out by Fang Yen. Of course, the child in the grass nest in the corner was also knocked out. This was the most beautiful little girl Fang Yen had ever seen. Perhaps even the human traffickers didn't have the heart to treat such a child too harshly, and even use licorice to make a comfortable little bed for her. It wasn't until Fang Yen saw a gun sticking out from the waist of a human trafficker that he realized these criminals might not be as simple as he thought. The green snake grass was still burning, and the poisonous gas in the cave was getting thicker and thicker. Fang Yen left with the little girl. He ran to the hillside with the little girl in his arms. Perhaps it was because she was woken up by the mountain wind, or maybe it was because Fang Yen was carrying her in the wrong position, or because the running was too bumpy, but the girl woke up. Her skin was white and tender, and her facial features were flawless. Long eyelashes, and the pair of dark eyes that looked at Fang Yen were like a pair of the purest black gems. Fang Yen only felt that his heart was about to melt. At that time, Fang Yen, who was only a teenager, actually had a sense of responsibility as a father and brother. He thought that no matter what, he must protect her from any harm. "Brother, you're not a bad person." The girl actually took the initiative to speak. She was not afraid, nor was she shy with strangers. Her voice was clear and sweet, like the tinkling of spring water. "How do you know?" Fang Yen grinned. He thought that this child was really interesting. Lying in the arms of a stranger when she opened her eyes, why didn't she cry out in fright? "It's because your face is red," the little girl said with a straight face. "Bad people don't blush. Bad people don't blush." Fang Yen thought about it seriously. He really hadn't seen bad people who blushed, but that didn't mean that there weren't any. Some bad people. While Fang Yen was thinking about the accuracy of this question, the girl giggled and said, "Also, bad people aren't that stupid. Mom said that bad people don't care what others think, they only care about what they want." You are still thinking about what I said, which proves that you are not a bad person. Fang Yen had the feeling of banging his head against the wall. He was actually deceived by a little girl. And he couldn't even fight back. "Brother, where are you taking me?" "I'm taking you to find your mom." "I don't know where my mom is, but the police uncle must know." "Because I got lost, my mom will definitely call the police," the girl said very seriously. "Okay, I understand," Fang Yen said. When he was searching up the mountain, he saw a police station at the foot of Jianfeng Ridge. It was said that it was specially set up to prevent people from racing on the mountain at night. Fang Yen carried the little girl to the police station. The girls at the police station were on guard. Some were on the phone, some were running up the mountain, and even more were guarding the little girl, separating Fang Yen and the little girl far away. The little girl sat in a separate room to rest. Fang Yen was chased out of the door. After recording his statement, no one cared about him anymore. Fang Yen walked to the yard and stood outside the window to look at the little girl in the room. "Brother, what's your name?" The little girl walked over and tiptoed to talk to Fang Yen outside. "You won't remember it even if I tell you," Fang Yen said with a smile. "You are still young, it's useless to remember these things. Quickly forget everything that happened today." He knew that if some children suffered trauma in their childhood, it could affect their fate for the rest of their lives. Fang Yen didn't want this kidnapping case to affect the future of this cute little girl who was like a baby boy hanging on the wall. She was so cute, how could God bear to let her suffer like this? But then again, this child could definitely be sold for a good price. The little girl shook her head and said in a tone that only adults would have, "But, I want to repay you." Fang Yen was once again amused by the little girl's words. He found that this child had a shrewdness and understanding that shouldn't be present at her age. "I don't need your repayment," Fang Yen said. "I just did what I wanted to do." Fang Yen waved his hand and turned to leave. Since the child had been handed over to the police, and they had called the little girl's family, then he should leave, right? After all, Bede was still far from here. If he walked back, it would take some time. He didn't want his grandfather to be unable to find him after the meeting. At that time, Fang Hui's temper was really bad. After walking a few steps, he saw a triangular piece of white paper on the ground. He picked up the paper, folded it into an airplane, and flew it toward the little girl in the room. Whoosh! The paper airplane actually flew through the gap between the steel bars of the window and flew in front of the little girl. "It's a gift for you," Fang Yan said with a wave of his hand. A dream of 1,000 years, as if it was a lifetime ago. That was too far away, so far away that it was like an unreal story. The girl took out her wallet from her pocket, opened the innermost layer of the wallet, and took out a yellow paper airplane. She said, "This is the paper airplane you gave me. I have always kept it in my wallet. I'm good to you because you're good to me. That's all." Chapter 380. The fat boss had finished his work and was holding an old-fashioned radio in his hands, adjusting the station with a magnetic pole. "May I ask where the road is? The Big Dipper will guide you. After eating, my waist won't be sore, my legs won't hurt anymore, my wives all say it's good." Lin Ilian's love life is bumpy, so she blends her feelings into her music. Today, I'd like to recommend an old song of hers to everyone. It's a song that makes people's hearts soft, like being gently brushed by a feather. It reminds people of the past of picking plum blossoms and riding on a bamboo horse, recalling the best childhood days. The fat boss didn't continue to adjust the channel. Instead, he put the radio in his arms and threw a few fried peanuts into his mouth with one hand. His other hand held a small glass of wine and sipped it happily. After a busy day, listening to an old song and drinking a glass of old wine, this was the happiest moment of his life. It had to be said that this fatso was a man with taste. All the fatso in the world had taste. The prince rides a white horse, the moon is gone, and how silly a cat is always chasing its tail. Memories of childhood are priceless. Children play, feet are full of sand. Is the one who taught me how to fold airplanes well. Is the one who taught me how to fold paper airplanes well. A paper airplane, a hurried communication, but it made a little girl's heart full of longing and memories. Fang Yan didn't know what that encounter meant. He just used his ability to do something he wanted to do and felt that he should do. However, Qin Etienne had always remembered it in her heart. She had even forgotten the experience of being kidnapped. Instead, she would simply think of the silly brother who carried her and ran down the mountain quickly, blushing when he spoke. Qin Etienne was a smart girl. She was a proud girl. She was a beautiful girl. She was the kind of girl who was doted on by everyone. She was the center of attention and had many followers behind her. Every day, there were countless people who tried to get close to her and fawn over her. She encountered more dangerous things than the kidnapping, and even bodyguards died for her. She was grateful to them, repaid them, and she remembered them. However, they were different from Fang Yan. They were all different. What was the difference? At that time, Qin Etienne was still too young. He was so young that he didn't know how to express his feelings, nor did he know how to analyze his heart. After Fang Yan gave her the paper airplane, he turned around and left. She did not cry, nor did she try to persuade him to stay. She simply felt as if she had lost something very important. What was even more strange was that this feeling did not become weak as he grew older. Instead, it was like weeds growing wildly in his heart. When you inadvertently noticed it, you would discover that it had already turned into a boundless grassland. Fang Yan reached out to take the paper plane. The thin piece of paper made him feel unusually heavy. How many years has it been? She actually kept it all this time. It was just a piece of waste paper that he picked up from the ground before he left. He folded it into a paper airplane and gave it to Chinitian, who looked cute and lonely at that time. This was because Fang Yen felt that she was just a little girl, and the people accompanying her were all tall and sturdy middle-aged men. She definitely wouldn't have anything in common with them. There was a piece of jade on his neck, and there was a heart-shaped bloodstone in his pocket, which he found in the mountain stream when he was searching for tire tracks. He had more precious gifts to give her. But he was reluctant to give it to her. He felt that she was just a child he had met by chance. He gave her a paper airplane to fly around while she waited for her parents to pick her up. Wasn't this a game a child should play? It was obvious that Fang Yen had underestimated the situation. Or rather, he underestimated the girl's stubbornness and persistence. You kept it all this time. Fang Yen carefully held the paper airplane. He was afraid that he would accidentally dismantle it. Because it was really too fragile. He didn't know how she had kept it for so many years. It was just yellow in color, but not the slightest damage. Only God knew if the girl was furious and would ask the fat boss to borrow a knife to cut him up. And Fang Yen could guarantee that the boss of Fatso would definitely stand on her side without hesitation. I kept it all the time. The girl smiled and nodded. This is the first time someone folded a paper airplane for me. I played for a long time after you left. When I was a child, I liked to play hide and seek. The people around me didn't dare to play with me because they were worried that I would hide in a place they couldn't find. If that happened, my parents would be very angry and they would be very unlucky. But I was really bored, so I could only play with myself. Then, I would often hide in a place where no one could find me. The girl raised the bottle and took a sip, explaining in a soft voice. Later on, I also reflected that I didn't really like hide and seek. I just liked that everyone was looking for me. It made me feel that I was valued. It was the anxiety from the bottom of my heart, not the care of food, clothing, and shelter. I liked to see them panicking instead of everything being in order. Not everyone wore the same kind of mask because they liked to express their emotions. I was really naive at that time. I even thought about changing something. That time, I accompanied my mother to Beidei for a meeting. She had work to do and couldn't accompany me. I wanted to build a castle on the beach, but a large group of bodyguards followed me. My butler told me that I must maintain etiquette when there are outsiders. So, because there were bodyguards following me, I couldn't build a castle. That was too childish and childish. You see, I knew what was childish and childish even when I was so young. I could only take a walk on the beach, although I was holding my breath. I saw a washing room next to the bathing area. I ran into the female washing room when they weren't paying attention. The surrounding were all male bodyguards. Even if they were very anxious, they could only wait outside the washing room. It was the first time I entered a public washing room. I was looking around curiously. Then, my vision went black and I fainted. When I opened my eyes, I saw you. At that time, there was a pimple on your chin, but it's gone now. The first thing I saw was that pimple. I matured early. Fang Yen said awkwardly. I guessed it right. My mother was furious when she found out that I went missing. One of the leaders who attended the meeting spoke, so the whole of Beidei was turned upside down. The girl obviously didn't want to explain too much about these official matters to Fang Yen. She immediately changed the topic and said, although the giant Fengling police station is remote, they received a notice to look for you. After they called the number that they found me, my mother immediately rushed over. I don't know what happened after that. My mother took me away, and everything was handled by the butler. I went home and slept. When I woke up, it was already late at night. I told my mother about being kidnapped and then you rescued me. I asked her to help me find you, but there was no news of you after that. Later, I found out that you filled in a fake name in the record book. I was afraid that things would never end. It would be very troublesome. Fong Yan said embarrassedly. I was also afraid that the bad guys would take revenge on me. You know, people out there are sinister people. If any of the police officers accidentally leaked my information, wouldn't I be in trouble as well? So I filled in the name by Xiao. The person in charge of interrogating me was perfunctory. He just wanted to go to the room to protect you. He just asked a few questions and ran away. He didn't even verify my identity. No one would care about what a child thinks. However, when Qinitian asked someone to check Fong Yan's registration information, he found out that Fong Yan had filled in a fake name. If that was the case, the policeman in charge of interrogating Fong Yan would be in trouble. He originally wanted to stay by Qinitian's side until Qinitian's parents or more important people came over to greet him or shake his hand. Then, everyone would be promoted by 3 ranks. What a tragic character. The floodgates of memories opened. Fong Yan even recalled the policeman's square face. He didn't look like a bad person. He just wanted to find an opportunity for himself. However, the cruelty of reality told him that he had gone the wrong way. If he had made a serious statement and a real and valid identity information, perhaps the Qin family's attitude towards him would have been different. Of course, it might have been worse. Then I forgot about you, Qinitian said. I also thought I forgot about you. The things I had to learn became more and more complicated. The things I had to do increased. Living in such a big house, I still felt that I couldn't breathe. After I talked to my mother, I went to watching. At that time, I just wanted to be as far away from Yanjing as possible. The place that was far from Yanjing but familiar to me was watching. The girl's eyes were bright. There was a smug smile on her lips. She looked at Fong Yan and said, when I was sleeping on the grass by the Rosefinch River, when I was woken up by the noise, when I saw a young man standing on a boat reading a poem, when I saw your face that was strange yet familiar, as if we would meet and chat every day. I felt a sense of relief that I had been waiting for so long. It wasn't the shock of the sea of people, nor the surprise of meeting again after a long time, but happiness and relief. Later, I understood that I left Yanjing for watching. I rejected first high school and Ivy League to go to Rosefinch. I stood by the Rosefinch River and waited for you. This was what I had always been doing. All those years, I always regretted that although you didn't tell me your name, I should have taken the initiative to tell you mine. The girl took the initiative to extend her hand to Fong Yan and said, "Hello, I am Qinitian." Chapter 381. Snow was flying outside the glass doors and windows, the room was not air-conditioned, and the soup in the bowl on the table had already solidified. However, the two of them did not feel cold at all as they reminisced about the past. The girl took the initiative to extend her hand to Fong Yan and said, "Hello, I'm Qinitian." This was a belated courtesy, and also a belated acquaintance. Fong Yan reached out and held Qinitian's hand. Her hand was cold, slender, and fleshless. He looked into the girl's serious and sincere eyes and said, "I'm Fong Yan. Nice to meet you. I recognized you at first sight. Although you were more mature than the Fong Yan I met before, at that time, your silhouette had already taken shape, and some of your expressions and movements were very special, and others could not imitate you. I've been waiting for you to recognize me. I thought you'd recognize me at first sight, or maybe you'd recognize me all of a sudden." Wait. Are you an idiot or an idiot? Why aren't you reacting at all? Qinitian pretended to be angry. Fong Yan was a bit embarrassed and said, You were still young at that time. A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood, becoming more and more beautiful. If you didn't tell me, if you didn't remind me of Janfeng Ridge and Beidei, I really wouldn't have remembered. Was I not beautiful when I was young? You were beautiful when you were young. Not beautiful now. Still beautiful now. Then why did you say that a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood, becoming more and more beautiful? Am I better looking now than when I was young? Both. Mr. Fong, your face is red again. Fong Yan rubbed his cheeks in embarrassment, then looked at Qinitian with a face full of shock and said, "Didn't you say, you didn't want to call me teacher?" "I didn't want to call you teacher before because I didn't want you to always treat me as your student," Qinitian explained with a smile. "Why are you calling me that now?" "Now I call you Mr. Fong, because you won't return to Rosefinch, right?" The smile on Fong Yan's face froze as he asked in a deep voice. Qinitian nodded and said regretfully, "There will be some repercussions from what happened in Flower City. Those people probably won't give up until they get what they want. I've already talked to my family, and they don't agree to let me go to Hua City. That place is too far from Yanjing City. On one hand, there's no natural barrier of authority, so no one would dare to do such a thing in Yanjing City. On the other hand, it's impossible for the family to send too many elite forces to protect me. The Chaoyan Research Institute has already diverted a lot of our energy, and we don't dare to use people who are not reliable enough. Also, I can't waste my time as freely as before. After the new year, I'll be my mother's assistant and start to get in touch with some of the family's core businesses." Hearing Qinitian's words, Boss Fatso glanced over. With an honest and mocking smile on his face, he thought to himself, "This girl is quite pretty, but her words are unreliable. Every time she opens her mouth, she talks about family, and core business. She makes it sound like your family has many businesses. Raising a few pigs at home isn't a family business, and being able to make a bowl of lamb stewed noodles isn't the core technology. Isn't it too early?" Fong Yan said in surprise. "You're still that young." "Still young." Qinitian smiled and said, "At my age, many people are already shouldering more and heavier responsibilities than me. It's just because my family spoils me and let me drift for so many years. Besides, I can't learn anything in school. I know everything you guys teach me." As a teacher, his self-esteem was still very hurt after being said that by a student in front of him. Fong Yan felt that whether it was from his personal standpoint or professional honor, he had to fight back against Qinitian's statement. So, Fong Yan looked at Qinitian and said, "Can your tongue lick your elbow?" If Qinitian said she couldn't, Fong Yan would quickly extend his tongue to her elbow and lick it. Then, he would seriously teach her that when three people walk together, there must be a teacher, and she should always be humble. There were some things that a teacher could do, but a student might not be able to do. Qinitian giggled and said, "This is not difficult for me." Qinitian stretched out his arm and drew a circle on his chest as if he had no bones. Then, Qinitian's lips gently kissed her elbow. Since her trump card had failed, Fong Yan could only admit defeat. At this moment, the glass door was pushed open with great force, and a strong cold current swept in. Qinitian was facing the door, and he couldn't help but wrap his sweater jacket around his body. A few middle-aged men walked in with the smell of alcohol, talking and laughing. The big man in the lead shouted, "Boss, make 4 bowls of stewed noodles. Big ones. Cut 2 pounds of beef. Be quick, we're all starving." Then, he turned to the 3 brothers behind him and asked, "Do you want a few bottles of beer to rinse your mouth?" "No, I won't drink any more. I drank a few bottles of wine in the nightclub just now, I can't drink any more. If Brother Hai drinks, I'll drink. If Brother Hai doesn't drink, I'll eat noodles." Eat noodles, I'm starving. How about we listen to Brother Hai and order a few bottles to rinse our mouth? Boss, give us a dozen beers. Brother Hai shouted loudly. Hey, that chick was really strong. She gave it to you in the washroom, I couldn't hold back. The few men shouted loudly and said some unpleasant things. Fong Yan frowned slightly, but Chinitian didn't make a sound, as if he didn't understand what they were talking about. Fong Yan looked at Chinitian and said, I'll send you back. The atmosphere of reminiscing was destroyed, so Fong Yan was ready to leave with Chinitian. Because he was worried that something unpleasant would happen, but he was in a really good mood tonight. He didn't want this happiness to be destroyed. Okay. Chinitian said. Fong Yan shouted, Boss, Bill. Coming. Boss Fatso, who was kneading the dough, quickly ran over. 9 yuan for a bowl, 18 yuan in total. Fong Yan gave him 50 yuan and said, Boss, keep the change, just treat it as we bought the mutton. That won't do. Boss Fatso said. I've already collected the mutton, 9 yuan for a bowl. As he spoke, he quickly found a handful of change and handed it to her. Fong Yan was stunned for a moment, took the change and said, Come often in the future. Come often in the future. Boss Fatso smiled honestly. As Fong Yan and Boss Fatso were talking, the eyes of the middle-aged men shifted to Fong Yan's face. After glancing at Fong Yan, they naturally saw Chinitian, then, they couldn't move their eyes away anymore. They were instantly stunned, and their hearts were beating rapidly. They felt that they had found the feeling of their first love. Yes, what a ridiculous thing. When they had long crossed the age of 30, each of them had found the feeling of their first love. Taking off his outer leather jacket, unbuttoning 3 buttons of his shirt, revealing a finger-thick gold necklace around his neck, the short and fat Fuhai wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Chinitian with a smile and asked, Little girl, are you still a student? Chinitian nodded and said, That's right. But soon I won't be. Oh, that's because I'm about to graduate. It's not good to graduate, it's still more comfortable in school. There's a lot of competition. The monthly salary of a university student who just entered society is 1,800 yuan. It's not even enough to rent a basement in a place like Yanjing. Little girl, have you found a job? Should be about right. What job? Assistant. Oh, it's called assistant, but it's actually a secretary. The people in society are sinister. Little girl, I see that you're very innocent and have no work experience, so don't be cheated by others. Brother Hai pushed away his chair and stood up, walking to Chinitian's side and said, Little girl, I'll give you a business card. I'm the person in charge of Hai Tian trading. I also have an advertising company and a modeling company. It just so happens that I've recently been recruiting a chairman's assistant. Little girl and I have fate. If little girl is interested in working at Hai Tian Trading, I'm willing to give you a monthly salary of 5,000, no, 8,000. This is only the probation period. After the probation period, the monthly salary will be at least 10,000. I can tell you, only you have this kind of opportunity, other graduates can't. Most of them still have to live in basements and eat box lunches. Chinitian took the business card and glanced at it, saying, Why do we have fate? Hee, you're so beautiful, you make people's eyes light up, who wouldn't want to have fate with you? Brother Hai opened his mouth and laughed, raising his arm to look at the time, inadvertently revealing the gold Rolex watch on his wrist, saying, Miss, it's 11:26 now, remember this time, we'll meet in this minute. This minute is so different. I'll wait for you for 24 hours, remember to call me. I won't wait after the deadline. Brother Hai showed his most romantic humanistic feelings, looking at Chinitian and said, Believe in my sincerity, believe in your eyes, give me a call, I'll give you a comfortable and satisfied smile. Pfft, Chinitian couldn't help but laugh out loud. She looked at Fang Yan and said, "Actually, this isn't funny. Thinking of ways to pursue the person or thing you like. This is also a kind of courage. This is one of the few good points he has, right?" Brother Hai also laughed and said, "Don't be fooled by my rough appearance, my heart is very meticulous. If you want something, you must think of ways to get it. How can a man not have a bit of aggressiveness?" Brother Hai patted Fang Yan's shoulder and said, "Students like these haven't experienced any big storms, their shoulder bones are so thin and weak, and their chests aren't wide enough. Can they protect their own women from getting hurt? This is also the reason why so many little girls nowadays like uncles like us." Chapter 382. Brother Hai really liked Chinitian. Who wouldn't like such a beautiful and cute girl? Brother Hai felt that he should act more mature and domineering. His big hand grabbed Fang Yan's shoulder, making him look like he was full of aggression and control. He knew that some young girls liked this style. Of course, the most important thing was that he used the hand with the watch to grab Fang Yan's shoulder. This way, his Rolex gold watch could be more natural and gorgeous in front of the girl's eyes. If she had a little bit of knowledge and knew that his watch was indeed a gold watch worth more than 100,000, not some street stall goods that only cost $12. He regretted that he put the Mercedes-Benz key in his pocket when he entered the door. If he held it in his hand, the effect would be better, but now it was inappropriate to take it out. This was a big mistake. He must pay special attention to it in the future. "Don't you think I'm very domineering?" Brother Hai asked. Fang Yan nodded and said, "Domineering." "Ha ha ha." Brother Hai laughed proudly and said, "I'm not domineering, I'm just showing off my strength." The richer a man's financial foundation, the greater his influence in society, and the more weight his words carry. No matter how soft your voice is, others will find a way to hear you. Young man, you will understand in the future. Fang Yan nodded again and said, "Indeed." Fang Yan felt that what Brother Hai said was very reasonable. If Brother Hai didn't have strength and still dared to show off like this, he would have already become Brother Hai Bien. Brother Hai looked at Chinitian sitting across from him and said to Fang Yan, "Is it okay to add a seat next to you?" "No problem." Fang Yan still nodded. He didn't have any intention to refuse. He smiled and said, "Sit down." Brother Hai proudly looked at his brothers, meaning to say, "Do you see that? I'm so powerful and cool, no one dares to disobey me." His underlings were also very cooperative, sending their eyes full of admiration and expressions full of worship. So, Brother Hai happily pulled a chair and placed it next to Fang Yan. "Which school are you from?" Eating noodles in a small noodle restaurant at this hour, he should be from the Aviation Academy, right? The Aeronautical Academy was the closest to this place. Flight attendant class. It's not that I want to say this, but the job of a stewardess sounds glamorous, but it's actually very tiring. She's just a flight attendant. The salary wasn't high, but there was plenty of work. There are also some customers who are not well-mannered. They are very touchy and give me a headache. We're not from the Aviation Academy, Fang Yan said with a smile. He stood up and was ready to send Chinitian back. When Fang Yan left, Chinitian naturally followed suit. The smile on Brother Hai's face froze. He sat down to have a good talk with Chinitian. Just as he sat down, the other party stood up to leave. Wasn't this a slap to his fat face? "Wait!" Big Brother Hai shouted. Fang Yan stopped and looked at Brother Hai. "What's the matter?" Brother Hai opened his mouth to speak, but he didn't know how to answer this question. What could he say? "You guys leaving just like that makes me lose face." The corner of his eyes glanced at the table, looked at Chinitian and said, "Little girl, you dropped something." "Dropped what?" Business card, Brother Hai said with a smile. You forgot your business card. Qin Etienne smiled and said, thank you. But, I never accept business cards from others. The people she was willing to remember didn't need business cards at all. Brother Hai's face became even more embarrassed, his eyes were fierce as he said, this isn't a good habit. If someone gives you a business card, that means they think highly of you. If you don't accept business cards from others, that means you're looking down on them. I'm a good person, but my temper isn't very good. If I think someone is looking down on me, then I'll let them have a good look at me. At that time, I'll definitely remember it deeply. Qin Etienne thought for a moment, then said, then just think of it as me looking down on you. Are you King looking to die? The lackeys were very conscious, seeing their big brother being humiliated, they immediately jumped up and attacked. You little bitch, one look and I can tell you're a slut. You've already become a black fungus, haven't you? Brother Hai, why are we talking nonsense with her? Let's take her away for you to play with. The boss of the noodle shop, Fatso, heard the two groups of people quarreling. He quickly put down the rolling pin and ran over, trying to calm them down. Don't be angry, don't be angry, anger hurts the liver, we're all civilized people. Fatso walked in front of Brother Hai and tried to calm him down. Brother, they're just two kids, they don't know how to talk, don't lower yourself to their level. You sit down, I'll make you a big bowl of lamb and noodles. Get lost, Brother Hai shouted angrily. Who the *CK are you? Do you believe that I won't smash your shop? The boss of Fatso said with a wronged face, you can smash my shop, how can you scold my mom? My mom didn't provoke you, are you deliberately looking to die? Brother Hai was even angrier. The boss of Fatso's rebuttal made him feel like it was a provocation to his dignity. I really didn't mean that, the boss of Fatso hurriedly explained. I just wanted to reason with you, how can you be unreasonable? My mom is farming in her hometown, she didn't provoke you, you can't scold her. With two groups of enemies appearing at once, Brother Hai didn't know who to beat first. Of course, his intelligent brain quickly helped him make the balance. He stared at the boss of Fatso with a sneer and said, damn Fatso, just you wait, the monk can run, but the temple can't, wait for your broken noodle shop to close down. You're fatter than me, the boss of Fatso said with dissatisfaction. What right do you have to scold me, damn Fatso? *CK, Brother Hai was about to explode from anger. Where did this idiot come from? Are you deliberately playing with me? Do you believe that I can make your broken shop close down with just one word? I don't believe it, the boss of Fatso said. You don't have that ability, even if you could do it, you'd have to ask someone to do it. If you ask someone to do it, you'd never get it right. You'd have to say at least a few dozen words. Brother Hai changed his mind. He was going to beat the boss of the noodle shop first. So, he waved his hand and shouted, brothers, help me break one of his legs, break both of them. I'll teach him a lesson. No problem, Brother Hai's brothers gathered around, ready to beat the boss of Fatso. Wait, Fong Yen shouted. He walked in front of the boss of Fatso and said, why don't you guys beat me up first? Young man, hurry up and leave. The boss of Fatso grabbed Fong Yan's arm and said, you take that little girl and leave, although she's a bit vain, she's not bad, and I can see that she likes you a lot, this is adult business, why are you two kids getting involved? Fong Yan smiled bitterly and said, big brother, how did you know that I'm a kid? You're not a university student here. I'm a teacher, Fong Yan said. A high school teacher. How could you be a university student? The boss of Fatso looked at Fong Yan's eyes with disdain, pointed at Qin Etienne and said, she's a high school student. She's a high school student, Fong Yan nodded. The fat on the boss of Fatso's face began to tremble, and he scolded, you beast in human clothing, you despicable person, you're a teacher, How could you date your own student? Do you have any sense of civility? Do you have any sense of shame? Have you thought about the feelings of the child's parents and family? People like you are worse than animals. No wonder people say that people who read a lot have bad hearts. Your hearts are all bad. Big brother, it's not what you think, it's not what I think. You think I didn't eavesdrop when you were talking? I didn't peek at the way you two talked. I saw it all, and I even secretly blessed you in my heart. Bah, I was blind and blinded to bless you. Brother Hai looked at Fong Yan, then looked at Chinitian, grinned, and said, interesting. Really interesting. I thought you were all university students, turns out you're just high schoolers. He stared at Fong Yan with a smile and said, little brother, you're really shameless, you can even lay your hands on a high school girl. Teacher, which school are you from? If your school finds out about this, I'm afraid you won't have a good time, right? Fong Yan squinted his eyes and looked at Brother Hai, and said, there used to be a hooligan called Brother Wolf. He also wanted to use this method to threaten me, and then? And then he licked my leather shoes, Fong Yan said. Big Brother Hai was furious and shouted, brothers, cripple this brat for me. Crash! The three men behind him immediately grabbed the bottles and rushed over. When Fong Yan was about to make a move, Boss Fatso suddenly pushed Fong Yan away, stood in front of him, and shouted, don't hit people, you can't hit people in my shop. If you want to hit someone, hit me, whoosh, a bottle was swung at Boss Fatso's head. This was Brother Hai personally making a move. He was really annoyed by this Fatso's incessant chattering. Go to hell, Brother Hai shouted angrily. He was going to crack open Fatso's head first, and let Fong Yan, the male teacher, and Chinitian, the female student, see some blood. Then things would be easier to deal with, and his goal would be easier to achieve. Crack, the sound of a bottle breaking came. Bright red blood dripped from his forehead drop by drop. Brother Hai's eyes were full of disbelief. He was the one who made the move, so why did his head hurt so much? He felt a little itchy in his eyes, and when he blinked, the blood flowed down his cheek. Chinitian threw the broken bottle on the ground and clapped his hands, as if he had done something very insignificant. Mr. Fong, I love watching you fight for me, Chinitian said with a face full of happiness. Chapter 383. When Brother Hai swung the bottle at the boss of Fatso, Fong Yan moved like a flash and caught the bottle. Chinitian didn't miss such a good opportunity. She grabbed the bottle that she had just drunk and smashed it at Brother Hai's head. What she hated the most was those bastards who beat people up without warning. The two cooperated well and scored a perfect score. Chinitian's move was neat and unexpected. Who would have thought that such a charming little girl could be so experienced and ruthless? After the fight, she said with a happy face, Mr. Fong, I love watching you fight for me. Fong Yan looked innocent. You were the one who hurt him. What did it have to do with me? I only grabbed the tendons of the other person's hand so that his body couldn't move. Brother Hai's head was in a daze and his body was on the verge of collapsing. Brothers, give me. Before he could finish his words, he fell to the ground with a thud. His eyes were closed and he fainted. The fat boss stared at the scene in front of him with his eyes wide open. He had already mentally prepared himself for the worst. He thought that his head would definitely be split open, but why was the person who hit him lying on the ground with his head bleeding? Damn, how dare you bully our Brother Hai? A man with a buzz cut grabbed the bottle in his hand and rushed at Fong Yan. Fong Yan felt even more wronged. Please open your dog eyes and see clearly, okay? I'm not the one who hit him. Can you not accuse a good person? Is there any truth in this world? As Fong Yan thought of this, he slapped the man with a buzz cut and sent him flying. Another man followed closely behind. Seeing that Fong Yen slapped his companion away, he wanted to turn around and escape. But his body's inertia made him continue to rush at Fong Yen. He was in a dilemma. Fong Yen didn't want to make things difficult for him. He suddenly lifted his leg and kicked the man's body into the air. He flew toward the glass door of the noodle house. "My door," the fatso boss shouted. Fong Yen used the Fong Plum Blossom steps, crossed his legs, and pounced towards the man's body. He reached out and grabbed the man's collar. Just as the man's body was about to hit the glass door, Fong Yen forcefully pulled him back. The man's heart was racing, and he was panting. He looked at Fong Yen gratefully and said, "Thank you." Bang! Chinitian smashed the bottle on his head and said with a smile, "You're welcome." "How did you knock him down?" Fong Yen asked. Chinitian stared at Fong Yen and said, "Aren't we fighting now?" "Yeah." "Then why can't I defeat him?" "I mean, we have already subdued him, and he has temporarily lost the ability to cause harm. Actually, there is no need to beat him up like this. I'm sorry," Chinitian said with a red face. "I'm too excited." The last man with the pigtail saw Haiji and his two companions being easily dealt with like tofu. His face was full of fear and disbelief. Seeing Fong Yen and the violent girl looking at him with unfriendly eyes, the man with the pigtail picked up a bottle from the table and asked, "Can I do it myself?" Bang! He smashed the bottle on his head. Because he didn't use enough strength, his head was broken, but the bottle was still intact. Blood flowed out from his hair, quickly dyeing his acne-filled face red. "The bottle isn't broken," Chinitian looked at him and said. "I'll do it again," the man with the pigtail said. Bang! The man used more strength, but the bottle still didn't break. The man with the pigtail was so anxious that he was about to cry. He once again smashed the bottle on his head and shouted, "Break!" Still not broken. "I'll let you break," still not broken. "I'll let you break, 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 break." The man with the braid kept smashing his own head with the beer bottle. The sound of banging was endless. Fong Yen couldn't bear to look at it. Just how bad was this guy's luck? He actually chose such a sturdy bottle. The man with the pigtail's head was dripping with blood. His entire face was also dyed red with blood. He wiped the blood off his face and looked at Chinitian with a sobbing tone, "Can I change the bottle?" All right, Chinitian waved his hand impatiently. "You can lie down." "Thank you," the man with the pigtail said gratefully. He quickly laid down on the ground, closed his eyes and pretended that he was dead. The boss of Fatso was stunned by this scene. He had been running the shop for more than 20 years, and he had experienced many fights between punks in his noodle shop, but he had never encountered something like this. Bullying could actually be done in a different way. Fong Yen walked in front of the boss of Fatso and asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," the boss of Fatso shook his head. "It's good that you're fine," Fong Yen said with a smile. "Thank you for your noodle. Also, you forgot to collect the money for the wine just now. I saw that the two of you were chatting happily, and you were talking about your childhood. When I was young, I also liked a girl in our village. I went out to open a noodle shop to earn money, planning to return to the village to marry her when I had enough money, but when I returned, she was already married and had a baby. I didn't mean anything else, I just wanted to give you two a few bottles of wine," the boss of Fatso said with a nostalgic expression. "Just think of it as a memory for myself," Chinitian said. "I'll accept the wine," Chinitian said. "Please accept my gift as well, no need to be so polite. What do you want to give me?" The boss of Fatso asked. "Someone will come to see you tomorrow." The boss of Fatso's mouth twitched, but he couldn't help but say, "Girl, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you're so beautiful, you already have a lot more than a lot of people, you don't need to fabricate a noble background for yourself. In my opinion, having a kind and honest heart is more noble than anything else. You're right, Chinitian smiled and said. My family will come to see you tomorrow. Haha, that's more like it. Family is family. Why do you have to say family? When you say family, I immediately think of the 4 big families of the Republic of China. It's too unbelievable. Fang Yan and Chinitian said their goodbyes and left. They knew that the people following behind them would arrange a very comfortable place for Brother Hai. Fang Yan walked in front, Chinitian followed behind. The night was deep, the snow had stopped. The traffic on the road gradually lessened, the pedestrians were nowhere to be seen, the entire Yanjing city was quiet, as if it only belonged to the two of them. Everything was asleep. The prince and princess came to visit their people. This boss is an interesting person, Fang Yan said with a smile. Opening a small noodle house, holding on to a small hope. After a busy day, drinking a cup of hot wine, eating a few peanuts, listening to a few old songs or a section of the 3 Kingdoms, it's not a waste of life. Chinitian walked 2 steps quickly, walking side by side with Fang Yan, and said with a smile, Mr. Fang, you're worried that I'll change his life, right? It doesn't have to be rich, sometimes a little happiness is also happiness, right? Fang Yan said with a smile. I know, Chinitian said. In a situation where the enemy is strong and we are weak, he's still willing to stand in front of us. It proves that this person is righteous. After knowing your identity as a teacher, he obviously doesn't like you, but he still doesn't want others to hurt you. It proves that this person is responsible. Such a good person should have a good karma worthy of them. Besides, we drank the wine he gave for free, so we naturally have to give him a gift. Worried that this would make Fang Yan unhappy, Chinitian patiently explained and said, if he's willing to keep this peace, he can refuse my kindness. But, if he's willing to accept, I'm also happy to give him a better platform and opportunity. What do you think of this? Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, do you know that you can change someone's life with one word? No, it's us, Chinitian said happily. It's us who changed someone's life together. Mr. Fang, do we have a fight together today? Sort of, Fang Yan nodded and said. That's really nice, Chinitian's eyebrows bloomed and said with a smile. Fang Yan was very helpless. What's there to be excited about? He used to fight with his friends. And he was often beaten by Yi Rou. Chinitian seemed to see through Fang Yan's thoughts and said, this is indeed a trivial matter for you, but for me, it's my first fight with someone. The first time I met you, the first time I folded a paper airplane, the first time I smashed someone's head with a wine bottle, you see, a lot of things happened because of you. Of course, every time I experience it, it enriches my memory. You're not prone to violence, are you? Fang Yan said with a smile. Even if I am, I don't have a chance to do anything, Chinitian said with a sigh. Indeed, if the young lady of the Qin family was not satisfied with a person, she was afraid that before she could do anything, all the hidden dangers would have been solved by someone else. She was noble, elegant, and polite. How could she be a fierce girl who smashed someone's head with a wine bottle? When she was very young, the family's housekeeper taught her to maintain etiquette when there were outsiders. Therefore, she could only be so unscrupulous in front of Fang Yan. Chinitian ran in front of Fang Yan, walked backward, and looked into Fang Yan's eyes with shining eyes. Fang Yan, do you still remember what I said to you before you left? Which one? I said that I would repay you, Chinitian said. I also said that I don't need it. I will be very angry when I see someone bullying you. If anyone hurts you, I'll skin him alive. Chinitian's figure was delicate and her eyes were soft, but her tone was extremely fierce and firm. I don't want the wind to hurt your eyes. I don't want the snow to fall on your shoulders. I don't want anyone to touch a hair of yours. No one. I wanted to repay you before, but now I want to protect you. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.